Chapter 1432. The hairstyling process was long and boring. Hence, Yoon Shirshir played with her phone while she permed her hair. However, when she opened Weibo, she suddenly realized that there were tens of thousands of new fans and countless comments. She was stunned. What was going on? Chin Zhou saw the suspicion on her face and kindly reminded her, the show was broadcast yesterday. It turned out that the first episode of The Love Diary was broadcast on Chungwang TV on the day she boarded the plane. The publicity for the show was overwhelming and it caused a sensation. Many die-hard fans of Gu Xingze were attracted to the show. On Weibo, the number of topics and discussions about the lucky couple rose to the top. Many fans of the original novel of The Green Apple even came to support them. Under the anticipation of the audience, the show was broadcast and it won the #1 spot among the primetime variety shows. There was no doubt about Gu Xingze's influence and appeal. No matter how one looked at it, there was no doubt about Gu Xingze's popularity. Once the show was broadcast, there was a heated discussion about the show online. For a reality show like The Love Diary, post-production was very important. Coupled with the character designs in the script, Yoon Shirshir and Gu Xingze's characters were very likable. One was a pure campus belle while the other was a warm and caring guy. Coupled with the gimmick of first date, many people fell in love with Gu Xingze's performance. It was Gu Xingze's first time participating in such a romantic reality show. As a fan of Gu Xingze, it was a huge attraction. Through the show, many viewers saw how romantic and affectionate their idol was when he was a boyfriend. They were even more fanatical. Unsurprisingly, half of the comments on Yoon Shirshir's Weibo were from Gu Xingze's die-hard fans. All kinds of unpleasant words were endless. There were even many marketing accounts that publicly humiliated Yoon Shirshir and accused her of using Gu Xingze's popularity to hurt Gu Xingze's fans. Yoon Shirshir did not read much of it. Chin Zhou specifically reminded her not to read the comments online for the time being to avoid getting hurt. She listened obediently and did not look at Weibo. However, Chin Zhou had his own reasons for giving such an order. It was not because of anything else, but because the fans who insulted Yoon Shirshir were all paid by Chin Zhou. This was also one of his methods. After the show was broadcasted, he immediately hired tens of thousands of ghostwriters to surround Yoon Shirshir's Weibo and attack her without thinking. They also clamored for #Yoon Shirshir to get out of the entertainment industry #. This was taking advantage of the public's sympathy for the weak mentality. If he did not do that, firstly, Yoon Shirshir's Weibo would definitely be attacked by Gu Xingze's fans after the show was aired. Secondly, it would be difficult for his team to control the situation. Therefore, he took the lead and sent out the internet water army to attack Yoon Shirshir with all kinds of vicious words. All kinds of attacks were unsightly and extremely vicious. As a result, many passers-by could not bear to continue watching. Thus, some kind-hearted netizens began to emerge. Are some of Gu Xingze's die-hard fans crazy? What right do they have to clamor for Yoon Shirshir to get out of the entertainment industry? What right do you have? Yoon Shirshir is so pitiful. Just because the program team arranged for her to participate in the reality show with Gu Xingze, she was attacked like this. How pitiful. Chapter 1433. She's just an imaginary couple with Gu Xingze. Does she have to suffer so many rumors for no reason? Shirshir, you can do it. Don't bother about those unreasonable fans. I'm your fan and I really like The Green Apple. When the movie is released, I'll definitely support it. In an instant, the #Shirshir, you can do it # became the top trending topic on Weibo. Many Yoon Shirshir's fans also started to fight back. Yoon Shirshir's fans deliberately took screenshots of Yoon Shirshir's beautiful moments from the show. Her good looks attracted many passers-by. Oh my god! Who is this woman? She's so beautiful. She reminds me of my first love. She has the temperament of a campus belle. I think she and Gu Xingze are quite compatible. I don't remember her name, but I know her. She's the newbie who acted in The Green Apple with Gu Xingze. She's so beautiful. Her nose is so beautiful and her eyes are so beautiful. It's as if there are many stars hidden in them. She's so beautiful. She's like an otherworldly fairy. Could it be that she's had plastic surgery? Many popular actresses nowadays are not original. Could it be that she's also had plastic surgery? The funny thing was, when some people questioned Yoon Shirshir's plastic surgery, Many netizens who used to be plastic surgeons came forward to analyze it. I've carefully studied Yoon Shursher's facial features. They're perfect. She has the perfect proportions of an Asian beauty. Her temperament is also very ethereal. The corners of her eyes are natural and the curve of her nose is also very natural. She doesn't look like she's had plastic surgery. I'm a plastic surgeon. I've studied her facial features. They're all natural. She hasn't gone under the knife. Facial features that have gone under the knife are very obvious. Many netizens started to look forward to the second episode of the show. I'm really looking forward to the second episode. But The Love Diary only has 2 episodes a month. We have to wait for another half a month for the second episode. I'm so envious of Shursher. Although I know that The Love Diary is just a reality show, I still think that she and Shingza are really compatible when they stand together. Moo Group. After Moo Yaja finished dealing with his work, he suddenly received an email. Inside the email was a link to a video website. The sender was Min Yu. Boss, Madam is recording a new episode. Moo Yaja clicked on it. It was a program titled The Love Diary. Love Diary? Looking at the introduction of the show, it seemed to be a reality show about imaginary love. He frowned slightly. Ji Lin would report Yoon Shursher's schedule to him every week. Among them, he mentioned that Yoon Shursher had recently accepted a reality show. He only knew that it was a reality show, but he didn't know that it was a hypothetical love show. Moo Yaja scanned through the list and saw Gu Xingza's name on it. His good-looking eyebrows furrowed even deeper at this sight. Gu Xingza? Why was it him? Out of curiosity, he picked up the mouse and clicked play. The video was 50 minutes long, but he was actually very patient. He finished watching it without fast-forwarding for even a minute. However, the more he watched, the gloomier his expression became. He felt inexplicably unhappy. Especially when he saw Yoon Shursher crying after Gu Xingza played a song in the cafe. His frown deepened. Why was she crying? Why was she crying? Was this a script? Chapter 1434. Moo Yaja furrowed his brows deeply, and his eyes were filled with anger. The reality show's post-production team had been specially hired to handle the entire production, so the show's effect was romantic and interesting. The scene of the two people's first date was especially romantic. Gu Xingza prepared a beautiful necklace for Yoon Shursher, and even put it on her personally. The scene where he put it on her was filmed in slow motion, and it matched with the love song Gu Xingza had specially written for the movie The Green Apple. The entire scene seemed to be filled with pink bubbles, and it made people's hearts beat faster. Yoon Shursher prepared a cake for Gu Xingza that had failed to bake, and there was a scene where she personally fed Gu Xingza. Moo Yaja watched the show expressionlessly from start to finish, and his face darkened. It was just a reality show. Reality shows were like movies, they had a script. Even though Moo Yaja knew that the so-called reality show was just a fake show, he was still upset and was about to turn it off. At the end of the show, Gu Xingza suddenly confessed his true feelings. On the screen was a quiet recording studio. He sat on the sofa, facing the camera, and talked about his feelings for the date. Where did you first meet her? Gu Xingza pondered for a moment, and his eyes suddenly curved. The first time I met her was at Huanyu's annual cocktail party. She was wearing a gorgeous gown, and her makeup wasn't very thick, but she was very beautiful. Her beauty was probably something that could not be described with superficial words. She had a very special aura that attracted me immediately. He spoke very slowly, and his eyes were looking at the camera with a slight smile. When he mentioned Yoon Shursher, the affection in his eyes could be clearly felt even through the screen. This man loved her deeply from the bottom of his heart. At the cocktail party, I invited her to dance with me. She had never learned ballroom dancing before, and she felt very clumsy. There were a few times when she stepped on my leather shoes. She was clumsy, but it felt. His voice suddenly stopped, and his eyes were filled with emotions, as if he was immersed in the memory of that day at the cocktail party. She felt very cute. The scene suddenly changed, and there was a scene from the date. It replayed the scene when Yoon Shursher took out the cake that she had baked for him. She looked defeated and cautious, and together with Gu Xingza's voiceover, it was touching. I like clumsy girls, and maybe I'm a male chauvinist in some ways. I like to pamper my girlfriend, and let her make trouble in my arms. I like that feeling, it makes me feel very safe. Is she clumsy? Actually, she's not stupid, but she's very kind, gentle, and treats people with sincerity. I like these qualities of hers. They're very attractive to me. In the next scene, the production team took out another question board. Do you believe in love at first sight? Gu Xingze was taken aback when he was asked this question. His gaze and thoughts drifted away. Is this question difficult to answer? Gu Xingze stopped thinking and suddenly shook his head. Then your answer is? Love at first sight. He narrowed his eyes and suddenly looked at the camera with a serious expression. Before I met her, I probably didn't. Chapter 1435. On his handsome face, the sullen expression was already overflowing with words. On the screen, a line of pink words appeared. Is TA your ideal type? When Gu Xingze received the question board, he was a little stunned. He suddenly asked, Ideal type? Yes. Generally speaking, you should have fantasies about your ideal lover. Gu Xingze pursed his lips and answered directly, I don't have an ideal type. The production crew was a little surprised and laughed. How can you not have an ideal type? Generally, men would have certain fantasies about their future lovers when they met and fell in love with each other. For example, long hair, figure, appearance, temperament. Gu Xingze also laughed. His thin lips curled up slightly, revealing a slight smile. After a moment of silence, his expression suddenly sank slightly. He said slowly, because of some reasons, I thought that I would probably never fall in love with anyone in my life. Gu Xingze revealed his true feelings for the first time and brought up his background. When I was young, my parents broke up. I was exiled abroad and grew up alone, so I didn't experience the feeling of family. I don't know what love is like. I only know that my mother's relationship was a failure. She was abandoned and then... He did not continue, but there was a faint melancholy in his eyes. This was the first time Gu Xingze had shown this side of him in front of the camera. In the past, he had always been aloof and extraordinary, giving people the impression that he was a very sunny idol. However, in front of the camera, for the first time in his life, he looked a little depressed in front of the camera. Actually, I don't believe in love at all. I feel that love is a kind of illusory thing that can't be touched or seen. At the same time, it only imperceptibly gives people a heavy burden and makes it difficult for them to move forward. After being in the entertainment industry for so many years, there hasn't been a woman who has made me feel like starting a family. The production crew said with heartache, this is the first time Xingze has mentioned this in front of the camera. Because I didn't have a family when I was young, my concept of family is very weak. Gu Xingze smiled. She gives me a feeling. How do you feel? He described it seriously, it's like a fated encounter, a fated lover. Fated lovers. A line of words appeared on the screen. He continued, if we have to talk about the ideal type, then it would be Shershur, right? Is Shershur your ideal type? Gu Xingze smiled deeply. I like her no matter who she is. You like her beauty? Gu Xingze shook his head. To be honest, I've seen many women more beautiful than her. The production team asked, then what do you like about her? Gu Xingze thought hard for a while, then suddenly said, it's an indescribable feeling. The production team, indescribable. That's right. Nothing can be explained clearly. The production team was a little surprised. What do you mean? Gu Xingze said affectionately, once you like someone, no matter what she looks like, no matter if she dresses up nicely or doesn't care about trifles, no matter if she's tall or short, fat or thin, rich or poor, you will like her. No one can replace her. Do you like the gift from TA? That cake? Gu Xingze raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled. There was a slight disdain in his eyes. Chapter 1436. But you looked so happy when you were eating the cake. You looked like you liked it a lot. Gu Xingze said seriously, yes, I liked it a lot. The production crew. Because she was the one who made it. Gu Xingze explained, even if I got food poisoning from eating it, I would still eat it. It was her kind intentions. I liked it a lot. As he said that, his face turned slightly red. In the slow-motion camera, Gu Xingze's smile was gentle and affectionate. What do you want to say to your idol? Gu Xingze suddenly pursed his lips shyly and avoided the camera. The shyness on his face was rare and had never been seen in front of the camera. In the past, Gu Xingze was always cold and indifferent in front of the camera. Even in front of his fans, he had never shown such an adorable smile. Like a shy boy. He smiled with his eyes squinted and was extremely gentle. "Don't be shy," Gu Xingze said. "Since it's from the bottom of my heart, I should say it to her secretly. I can't say it to you guys." The crew started to coax him. "You can say it here. She can see it too." "Really?" "Yes." Gu Xingze turned and looked at the camera as if he was looking at her. Suddenly he said solemnly, "Please be my girlfriend." Then there was a long silence. The crew was stunned. "That's it?" Gu Xingze's face turned even redder. The crew tried to persuade him again. "Do you have anything you want to confess to her?" Gu Xingze mustered up his courage again and looked at the camera. His eyes were deep, but his smile faded and he looked a little solemn. Sure, I like you. I really like you. I don't know if you will like me like this, but I will try my best to give you happiness. Please date me. If possible, we can start a family together and then bear a child for me. I will be a responsible husband and father." Gu Xingze paused for a moment and said seriously, "I really like you." After saying that, he smiled gently in slow motion. The scene was so beautiful that one could not help but be moved to tears. "Pa!" Mu Yaja slammed his notebook shut. His face extremely gloomy. He made a call and instructed Minyu to report Yun Shirshir's recent schedule to him. Not long after, Minyu sent Yun Shirshir's schedule for this month to her. 1 month. 30 days. Every day's schedule was packed to the brim. At first glance, there was almost no time to breathe. According to her itinerary, she was currently in Italy, rushing to Milan Fashion Week. Milan Fashion Week was one of the 4 most famous fashion weeks in the world. Milan, Paris, New York, and London. Among the 4 major fashion weeks, Milan Fashion Week was the latest to rise. But now, it was already at the top. It gathered the top figures in the fashion industry, thousands of professional buyers, and professional media and style trends from all over the world. The global spread of these elements was far beyond other business models. As one of the top 4 fashion weeks in the world, Milan Fashion Week in Italy was considered the barometer of fashion design and consumption in the world. Chapter 1437. As everyone knew, many female celebrities were working hard to become an international superstar. Compared to the red carpet at the Oslo, Berlin, Venice, and Cannes Film Festival, the fashion show was more approachable and had a lower threshold. The International Fashion Week, which happened twice a year, was not only a major event in the global luxury industry, but also an important opportunity for many female celebrities to grab the headlines. Every mid-autumn festival season, many female celebrities would rush to the fashion shows without prior agreement. Watching a fashion show was a very high-class thing. Although the threshold was low, it wasn't easy to get an invitation letter. It should be noted that when a luxury brand held a fashion show during Fashion Week, the range of invitations they could send out was strictly limited. In fact, 40% of the invitations were for the world's top fashion media. 30% was for famous fashion buyers. 10% was for celebrities and guests. 10% was for top VIP customers. The last 10% was reserved for random allocation. As a VIP, Mu Yaja also received an invitation to the Milan show, but he threw it aside. He wasn't interested in fashion shows, so he didn't plan to go. Celebrities who received a direct invitation from a brand were of course the highest status. The right to watch the show in the VIP section was a top-notch standard. Ordinary female celebrities couldn't get this position. In addition, people in this position not only had the priority to choose clothes to wear in the show, but they could also be personally received by the brand's designer to pave the way for future cooperation. Celebrities who didn't have a direct connection with the brand could choose to connect with 40% of the media. As the domestic media increased their coverage of the Fashion Week, watching a show with a celebrity became the focus of various reports. Some media even hired celebrities as special fashion observers, which became a win-win cooperation model. On one hand, the media used the gimmick of famous celebrities to enrich their coverage. On the other hand, celebrities could also use the media to increase their exposure. Some celebrities who didn't have any works, but had good looks and temperament, became the media's partners. Of course, some low-ranking female celebrities didn't even have such conditions. They didn't even have the qualifications to attend the fashion show. But in order to gain space and ride the popularity of the fashion show, they would fight at their own expense. They would take the initiative to pay the media's travel expenses, bribe the brand's public relations with high prices, and get in through the back door. Even if they didn't have a seat, standing was enough to write a few rounds of publicity. What outshines the crowd? What heaven-shattering beauty? What stunning appearance at the end of the show? What was the truth? Many female celebrities who failed to get an invitation to the fashion show shamelessly went to the red carpet, but they were still rejected by the ruthless fashion show. Even so, they still had to pretend to be elegant and stand outside the entrance of the fashion show to take a few glamorous photos. Later, they would use the publicity to hype themselves up, which was also a good way to get publicity. Yoon Shershur's participation in the fashion show this time was all because her manager had helped her secure a collaboration with a major brand not long ago. Chapter 1438. Mu Yaja rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Suddenly, his gaze fell on the invitation letter that he had thrown aside. After receiving the invitation letter for the Milan fashion show, he threw it aside. He picked it up again and looked at it carefully. Then, he dialed Min Yu's private number. Book me a direct flight to Milan. Ha! Boss, there's a final meeting tomorrow. Reschedule it. Mu Yaja said calmly. Book the ticket now. Okay. Min Yu didn't dare to disobey his orders. He immediately rushed to book the ticket. Milan. In the stylist studio, Yoon Shershur's styling was done. A few stylists surrounded her and took turns to examine her. Then, they pushed her in front of Qin Zhou. Qin Zhou crossed his arms and looked her up and down a few times. His gaze fell on her face and he stared at her carefully for a long time. Yoon Shershur raised her eyebrows. Is there a problem? Lip color. Qin Zhou tapped his lips and commented, It's too light. Do you need to touch up your lip color? Of course. If the lip color is too light, it won't look good on camera. It'll make you look haggard. Qin Zhou was obviously experienced. He had attended more fashion shows than many female celebrities. Therefore, he had a high aesthetic standard when it came to makeup. One of the stylists said, Her skin is very fair. Indeed, dark lipstick is more suitable. Qin Zhou instructed the stylists, Use Dior Blue Gold number 999 for her. Okay. Yoon Shershur touched up her lip color. The Dior Blue Gold number 999 color was especially bright. Together with her fair skin, the makeup gave off a noble and gorgeous feeling. Qin Zhou was satisfied. Very good. What about now? Qin Zhou snapped his fingers and said, Follow me to the venue to pick out the dress. After that, Qin Zhou immediately brought Yoon Shershur to the star-making factory to make the final preparations for the show. The dresses for the female celebrities were all prepared by the brand. This time, Louis Vuitton had prepared 20 sets of gowns. Generally speaking, these gowns would be given to A-list celebrities and VIPs to choose from before being given to B-list and B-list celebrities to choose from. Therefore, when it was time for the celebrities to choose, they had no choice. In addition, most of the new clothes from these brands were samples that had not yet been put on the shelves. Most of the designs were custom-made according to the figures of Westerners. In order to make the dress fit better, the tailors had to do some post-processing, which would inevitably destroy the original cut and layering of the dress. If the celebrity's temperament couldn't be controlled, a big brand's ready-made clothes would be reduced to a David. The size of the gown was on the slim side according to model standards. Therefore, Qin Zhou didn't allow Yoon Shershur to eat too much these days. He couldn't gain weight. She really couldn't put on more weight. Even if she gained 0.01 kilograms, it wouldn't do. The sizes of the gowns from the brand were on the small side. If she picked a beautiful gown but had to give it up in the end because her figure didn't match the gown, she would be in an awkward situation. As for the so-called joint name, the brand had its own standards. Even if it was difficult to pull a button, the gown would have to be given up. After all, the gowns prepared by the brand were all worth tens of millions. They were magnificent treasures, and some of them were limited edition. Therefore, the requirements for a celebrity's figure were very strict. Chapter 1439. Qin Zhou had put in a lot of effort so that Yoon Shershur could appear beautiful on camera. Many big names were present on the day of the fashion show. Female celebrities came one after another to attend this grand fashion event. Han Yuyen, Yang Mi, Lin Ji. Of course, There were also some female celebrities with lower status who were on their way. When they arrived at Louis Vuitton's studio, they were surprised to see Lin Ji there. Lin Ji was stunned to see Qin Zhou and Yun Shirshir. She did not expect Yun Shirshir to receive an invitation from Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton had only sent out 20 invitations. Among them, only 6 were sent to the domestic celebrity circle. 3 of them were sent to 3 of the more famous female celebrities in the fashion industry. To put it bluntly, they were red carpet professionals. Qin Zhou called them carpet stars. Other than Yun Shirshir, the other was Lin Ji. Lin Ji had shot a series of print ads for Louis Vuitton's spring collection. This was the first print ad that Lin Ji had received from a major brand. Because of this, Lin Ji's team had been wantonly promoting Lin Ji's high status. After all, as one of the top luxury fashion brands, to be able to get a print ad from Louis Vuitton was extremely dazzling. Qin Zhou was especially disdainful. Useless. She had received a print ad and was bragging so much that she wanted to announce it to the world. Haha, what a disgrace. Lin Ji saw Qin Zhou and smiled slightly. She quickly walked up to him and greeted him gracefully. Hello, CEO Qin. She took the initiative to greet him enthusiastically, yet she completely ignored Yun Shirshir, who was standing at the side. It was as if the latter did not exist in her eyes. She was deliberately giving her the cold shoulder. Or perhaps, in Lin Ji's eyes, Yun Shirshir was just a newcomer. She could not be compared to her at all. If they were to greet each other, Yun Shirshir should be greeting her first. If she were to greet her first, it would be beneath her status. However, Qin Zhou was different. He was one of the top managers in the industry. His methods were top-notch. Moreover, he was a shareholder of Huanyu. If she could get to know him, she could ask him to pave the way for her in the future. She had her eyes on the gold resources in his hands. Her ambition was obvious. Qin Zhou glanced at her with disdain in his eyes. He frowned and also looked at her with disdain. He looked to the side and whistled. Humph. His face was cold and noble. Since this Lin Ji was so arrogant that she ignored Yun Shirshir and treated her like air, then he wouldn't take her seriously either. His sneer and the indifference on his face caused Lin Ji's face to darken and turn livid. This was clearly not giving her face in public. Yun Shirshir looked at Lin Ji and then at Qin Zhou. She raised her eyebrows. Lin Ji turned around slightly and smiled at Yun Shirshir like a slipper. However, this smile was a fake one. It was just a smile on her lips, but the smile did not reach her eyes. Shirshir, it's you? Sigh, look at me. I only noticed you because my eyesight is bad. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Her smile was cold and stiff. There was no friendliness in it at all. Yun Shirshir heard this and smiled coldly. Hello, are you the stylist here? Qin Zhou laughed rudely. Chapter 1440. Qin Zhou laughed rudely. Shirshir, you're too cute. She's not a stylist, she's Lin Ji. You should have seen her before. Lin Ji's expression turned even uglier. This Yun Shirshir. Was she deliberately picking a fight? However, Yun Shirshir looked as if she had suddenly realized something. Oh! I saw her during the audition for Lethal Beauty. She auditioned for the female lead with me, Lin Ji. After saying that, Yun Shirshir mimicked Lin Ji and put on a fake smile. She said as hypocritically as she could, Aya, Senior Lin Ji, I'm sorry. Your makeup is too thick. I didn't recognize you for a while. It would have been fine if she hadn't said that, but once she did, Lin Ji's expression was as ugly as it could get. Was this Yun Shirshir doing it on purpose? Was she mocking her for having too much makeup? Qin Zhou smiled satisfactorily and looked at Yun Shirshir with satisfaction. Not bad. This little lass's ability to make people uncomfortable had improved quite a bit. At this thought, he raised his brows and continued Yun Shirshir's words, saying, It can't be helped. Some people don't have the temperament and beauty, so they can only rely on makeup to maintain their looks. Shirshir, don't look down on others. Qin Zhou's mouth was so venomous that it made people speechless. It wasn't without reason that he said that. He had seen Lin Ji's bare face once by chance. She was simply a passerby. If it weren't for the fact that her facial features were sculpted and could rely on makeup to maintain her beauty, her facial features weren't purely natural. Who knew how many times they had been processed in the post-production? Being hailed as the #1 costume starlet was just an undeserved reputation. Compared to Yoon Shurshur, she was really too far behind. Lin Ji was completely speechless. Qin Zhou was famous for his poisonous tongue. In addition, Yoon Shurshur had learned something, and would occasionally add salt to the wound. She was beaten black and blue. But she found it hard to refute. Lin Ji was not a natural beauty like Yoon Shurshur. Her nose was padded, her chin was shaved, and her eyelids were cut. Even so, it was difficult for her to compete with Yoon Shurshur in terms of ancient costumes. This was also the reason why she was eyeing Yoon Shurshur covetously. She was very ostracizing her. Her sixth sense told her that as long as this Yoon Shurshur could seize the opportunity, she would definitely become famous overnight and surpass her. However, even though she was mocked mercilessly, she couldn't do anything to Yoon Shurshur in front of Qin Zhou. She could only glare at her secretly. Qin Zhou suddenly asked curiously, Lin Ji, I heard that the female lead of Lethal Beauty has been decided on you. Is that true? Lin Ji regained some confidence after hearing his question. She raised her chin proudly and said proudly, Yes. The female lead has already been decided. Although the production team hasn't released any news, the female lead has already been confirmed to be me. What a pity! Qin Zhou suddenly said. Lin Ji was stunned for a moment and looked at him in confusion. Obviously, she didn't understand what he meant. CEO Qin, what do you mean? Qin Zhou smiled coldly and said slowly, If it weren't for our Shurshur wanting to challenge for the role of the second female lead, this female lead might not have been yours. Speaking of which, shouldn't you thank our Shurshur? Lin Ji's face froze. She was so angry that she was about to vomit blood. She was really mad. Chapter 1441. It was said that Qin Zhou was famous for his poisonous tongue. Now that she had experienced it herself, it was true that he lived up to his reputation. This Qin Zhou was simply infuriating her. And this Yoon Shurshur, she was purely trying to annoy her. Lin Ji was so angry that she gritted her teeth. However, she couldn't do anything to Qin Zhou and Yoon Shurshur. She could only say in a sarcastic tone, I'm also very flattered to be able to receive Director Gu's recognition. However, since Director Gu chose me as the female lead, he must have his own opinions. After all, Director Gu is a famous gold medal director in the industry. His foresight is unquestionable. She was using Gu Xiaoyang's words to elevate her own status. Lin Ji kept praising Gu Xiaoyang's foresight. Wasn't she just indirectly flaunting that she had won the female lead role in Lethal Beauty, based on her own capabilities? Qin Zhou was disdainful. What was there to rely on? If the entertainment industry really relied on capabilities, how could Lin Ji be considered a crooked person? Didn't she rely on her sugar daddy to get to where she was? At the thought of this, Qin Zhou was angry. If not for his Shurshur wanting to challenge for the role of the second female lead, the female lead role would not have been Lin Ji's. Qin Zhou had been in the industry for so many years. With so many connections, how could he not be able to get the female lead role? He snorted coldly. He couldn't bear to see Lin Ji humiliating Yoon Shurshur in front of him. His impression of Lin Ji instantly changed from a passerby to a hater. Hence, he sneered, Lin Ji, then you'd better act well. Our Shurshur will be in the same drama as you. She'll be playing the evil female lead in this drama. Don't let Shurshur become famous while you don't. That'll be ugly. Lin Ji's expression darkened even further. Qin Zhou's words really stung her. He had said this because there was an allusion to it. Previously, Lin Ji had taken part in a period drama. In that period drama, she played the female lead. However, the female lead's persona was the standard naive and sweet one. It was very unlikable. If this persona had been put in a decade ago, perhaps the audience would have liked it. However, after more than 10 years of acting in the same silly and sweet way, the audience had long been tired of it. They despised the role played by Lin Ji. If it wasn't for her looks, she would have lost a lot of fans because of that drama. However, this was not the end. What she couldn't accept the most was that the second female lead in the drama, whose love turned to hate and was madly infatuated with love, had a vicious character and was extremely unflattering. However, her superb acting skills made her shine in front of everyone's eyes. Her beauty overshadowed the crowd, and she instantly became popular. This fire completely overshadowed Lin Ji's limelight. This film had become the female star's representative work. However, the awkward thing was that when this film was mentioned, the audience's first reaction was probably the second female star, not Lin Ji. Therefore, when Lin Ji heard Qin Zhou's words, she knew that he was mocking her. Why was he so aggressive? Lin Ji was furious. She suddenly turned her eyes and fixed them on Yun Shishir's face. Her eyes narrowed slightly, full of disgust. It was probably because he was protecting Yun Shishir. After all, Qin Zhou was Yun Shishir's immediate manager. Lin Ji had ignored Yun Shishir just now, which had obviously angered him. But why? Why would the insufferably arrogant Qin Zhou, who was known as the best manager in the industry, worship and protect Yun Shishir in every way possible? Chapter 1442. Besides her beauty, what else did she have? Her acting skills? Lin Ji had never watched any of Yun Shishir's works. At most, she had only watched a few of Yun Shishir's movies. Hence, she did not have any idea of her acting skills. The prideful Lin Ji, on the other hand, naturally did not think much of Yun Shishir. In her eyes, Yun Shishir's acting skills might not be as good as hers. After all, she had debuted a few years earlier than her. In terms of experience and skills, she did not think that she would lose to her. Yun Shishir was just relying on her good resources. But where did she get such good resources from? Wasn't it all from Qin Zhou? Lin Fengtian was able to get a movie, and she was able to work with Gu Xingze when she had just debuted. She even heard that Gu Xingze had specifically invited her to be his female companion at Huan Yu's annual cocktail party. She even had access to the resources of The Love Diary. As the second imaginary couple of The Love Diary, this resource was truly a golden resource. Why did she say so? As a brand new variety show, The Love Diary was a new variety show that had just been released. It was created by the best variety show team in Korea. One had to know that reality shows were the best way to build popularity with the audience. It was also a golden resource that many people yearned for. Ordinary people simply could not get it. When The Love Diary was first released, the production team did not know how the show would turn out. Hence, they specially invited two B-list celebrities to be the imaginary couple. After a few episodes, they realized that the show's effect was quite good. After a few episodes of pre-promotion, the production team realized that this reality show had a huge market potential. However, during the period when the show was on the rise, they were eager to stabilize their popularity. Hence, they paid a huge price to invite Gu Xingze. However, as for the female guest, the production team did not initially decide on Yun Shishir. Instead, they decided on another female guest. The reason why Qin Zhou was able to get the resources was because Gu Xingze had contacted the production team. If the female guest was not Yun Shishir, he would have left the production team. How could they accept this? When the production team heard this, they did not hesitate to invite Yun Shishir. One had to know that the success or failure of this program did not depend on the female guest. Most of the viewership ratings depended on the male guest. As a heavenly idol, Gu Xingze alone was enough to support the entire program's value and viewership ratings. That was enough. It didn't matter who the female guest was. Moreover, since Gu Xingze said so, the crew had no choice but to do as he wished. Lin Ji gritted her teeth in anger. The reason why she was so angry was because if Gu Xingze hadn't insisted on naming Yun Shishir, she might have been named as a female guest on this episode of The Love Diary. Why did Gu Xingze pick Yun Shishir? Would Gu Xingze like Yun Shishir? What a joke! After Lin Ji's anger subsided, she thought about it carefully. She soon suspected that there was an unspeakable relationship between Yun Shishir and Qin Zhou. Back then, when Qin Zhou terminated his contract with Gu Xingze and signed Yun Shishir as a newcomer, rumors began to spread in the industry. After finding out that Qin Zhou had terminated his contract with Gu Xingze, many people were in a mess. This Qin Zhou. Had he lost his mind? How could he terminate his contract with Gu Xingze? Oh please! Was there something wrong with his brain? Gu Xingze was a money tree. Chapter 1443. Gu Xingze was the hottest idol in the entertainment industry, the nation's heavenly king. He had been in the industry for 10 years, but he was still doing well. His career was still on the rise and he still had a promising future. In the end, the contract was terminated just like that. At first, people thought that Gu Xingze and Qin Zhou had a disagreement, so he dumped Qin Zhou. However, They later learned that the two had actually broken up peacefully. This made it even harder for people to figure out what was going on. It was a bit of a mystery and they couldn't see clearly. Until now, many people still couldn't figure out why Qin Zhou would give up the reliable Heavenly King Gu to sign a newcomer and promote her without hesitation. There was something even crazier. Qin Zhou actually used Heavenly King Gu's popularity to promote Yun Shirshir. Was he crazy? Could it be Yun Shirshir had been seduced by Qin Zhou? Many people suspected so. Qin Zhou had slept with Yun Shirshir, so he made a promise to her that he would make her famous. Generally speaking, the status of a manager was similar to that of an artist. However, Qin Zhou was different. As an ace manager with first-tier resources and a shareholder of Huanyu, Qin Zhou was rich and had a wide network. Let's not talk about this for now. The most important thing was, Qin Zhou had the face of an idol. Therefore, many female celebrities were lining up for him to pamper them. However, Qin Zhou and Gu Xingze were the same. They were not interested in women, so many people thought that Qin Zhou was gay. Thinking of this, Lin Ji looked at Yun Shirshir with viciousness and disgust. Yun Shirshir glanced at her from the corner of her eye, and keenly caught the other's sinister gaze. Lin Ji was stunned and looked away. Then, she raised her chin and smiled elegantly but coldly. I've been in the entertainment industry for so many years, so my acting skills have been honed. In the past, I didn't have the ability, but now I can't be sure. I hope so. Qin Zhou smiled coldly. Yun Shirshir couldn't stand Lin Ji's arrogant face. She suddenly smiled innocently, tilted her head, and asked innocently, Senior Lin Ji, are you here to attend the fashion show? He didn't wait for Lin Ji to respond. Qin Zhou immediately said, Shirshir, you don't understand. Some people didn't sleep for 2 days and 2 nights just to get on the red carpet. They traveled thousands of miles to get here. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Ji's face turned green. She looked at Qin Zhou angrily. Her eyes were filled with confusion and hurt, but more than that, it was anger and embarrassment. Chairman Qin, you've gone too far. After saying that, Lin Ji raised her head pretentiously. As the spokesperson for the new spring collection of nectar, I received an official invitation. You're saying that I'm just trying to get on the red carpet? That's slander. Wow, the spokesperson for the press conference, haha. It's one thing for you to brag in front of the public, but how dare you brag in front of me? Aren't you afraid that you'll be exposed? Qin Zhou mocked him mercilessly. Lin Ji's expression turned even uglier. Indeed. In terms of publicity, Louis Vuitton was divided into brand partner, brand spokesperson, and brand ambassador. These 3 titles were easily confused, but in reality, they were fundamentally different. Chapter 1444. As the spokesperson, Lin Ji was only endorsing one of Louis Vuitton's Nectar series. She was the spokesperson for the entire Nectar collection, from the clothes to the bags. The products she was the spokesperson for were only the tip of the iceberg. It looked glamorous, but it was just a product line under the brand. The value of the endorsement was very low. As for brand ambassador, it meant that she was the spokesperson for the entire brand. In other words, Louis Vuitton's only brand ambassador in the Greater China region was Gu Xingze. They had never had a female spokesperson before. Therefore, Lin Ji was already very pleased with herself after being the spokesperson for one product line. Then what is she here for? Lin Ji asked aggressively. Her gaze fell on Yun Shirshir with evil intentions. Did she bring any products? Or was she invited by the brand? That's impossible. After all, the one who came all the way here just to get on the red carpet should be your artist. Ahem. Qin Zhou was amused. Lin Ji was angry, but she tried to restrain herself. Am I wrong? I'm sorry. Our Shirshir has received an invitation from the brand. As soon as Qin Zhou finished speaking, Lin Ji said arrogantly, Impossible. He raised his eyebrows disapprovingly. What's impossible? How could she have received an invitation? She's just a newcomer. What right does she have to receive an invitation from the brand? Qin Zhou looked past her impatiently. He did not want to waste any more time on her. He turned around and called out to Shirshir, Shirshir, come with me to choose your gown. With that, he entered the VIP lounge. Yun Shirshir nodded. Just as she was about to follow her manager to the VIP area, Lin Ji's figure flashed and blocked her path. "You're not allowed to enter." "Oh?" Yun Shursher's brows furrowed slightly as she raised her eyes to look at the arrogant Lin Ji blocking her way. She was a little surprised. "What do you mean?" "Where's the invitation?" Lin Ji opened her palm. "Without an invitation, you don't have the right to step into this place. You don't even have the right to enter the VIP room." She had disliked her for a long time. Therefore, Lin Ji swore to teach her a lesson. She didn't want a newcomer who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. She was her senior, but she didn't take her seriously. Of course, she had to teach her a lesson. Yun Shursher was neither angry nor shocked. She walked around her as if she did not hear her. Lin Ji was even angrier and blocked her way again. "Where are you going?" "Senior Lin Ji, please step aside." Yun Shursher smiled politely. However, there was a faint smile on his face and a mocking look in his eyes. Lin Ji was completely enraged by her gaze. She blurted out, "Go back. This is not a place for you to be. Who do you think you are? Do you really think you're a big shot?" Yun Shursher ignored the sarcasm in her words, but the smile on her face slowly faded. When she looked up, her eyes were frosty as she stared at her coldly. Suddenly, she let out a mocking laugh. "You're the one who thinks you're a big shot, right? Senior Lin Ji." Chapter 1445. Lin Ji laughed coldly and looked her up and down with disdain. She said expressionlessly, "Haha, some female stars are trying to use fashion resources to climb up the ranks. Yun Shursher, do you think I don't know what tricks you're playing? There are so many dirty newcomers like you in the entertainment industry. What wouldn't they do to climb up the ranks? Don't think I don't know about your dirty tricks." She paused and continued sarcastically, "Do you think the fashion show is a market? You think you can come whenever you want? This is Fashion Week, not a place for you to play house. If you want to play, go home. Don't embarrass yourself here." She looked at Yun Shursher after she finished speaking, but there was no trace of anger on her face. The current her was truly unfazed by honor and disgrace. No matter how big the humiliation, she could face it calmly. "Are you done talking?" Yun Shursher asked indifferently after Lin Ji finished speaking. It was as if she wasn't the one who had insulted her. "You're really thick-skinned." The more Lin Ji looked at her nonchalant face, the angrier she got. She hated such an elegant and cold face the most. Just like that, she felt as if she was a clown jumping up and down with her hair standing on end after saying those humiliating words just now. She felt like she had become a joke. Indeed, Yun Shursher looked at her as if she was looking at a joke. "Lin Ji, speaking of thick-skinned, you've shown me what it means to lie through your teeth." Yun Shursher's lips suddenly curled into a faint smile. Coupled with the makeup on her face, she looked like a graceful and elegant model of nobility with a threatening air of nobility. She was half a head taller than Yun Shursher. Hence, when Yun Shursher imitated Lin Ji and raised her charming chin slightly, Lin Ji had no choice but to look up at her. This made her feel inferior to Yun Shursher's aura. "I received an invitation from the brand and came to watch the fashion show. If you have a problem with it, what's the use of looking for me? If you think I'm not good enough for the show, do you think you're good enough?" After Yun Shursher finished speaking, she coldly sized her up again. Then, a trace of disgust appeared on her face. "In terms of temperament, I'm actually very suspicious. How did you become the spokesperson of Louis Vuitton? Comparing your temperament with mine, you must be joking." Her tone was extremely arrogant. She didn't try to hide her arrogance at all. She returned the humiliation that Lin Ji had just given her. Lin Ji flew into a rage out of humiliation. Her face turned red as she glared at him. "What did you say?" "I said, in terms of temperament, you don't deserve to be compared to me." Yun Shursher paused for a moment. Then, she elegantly took out an invitation from her handbag and waved it in front of her. "This is an invitation. Open your eyes and look carefully." Lin Ji saw it clearly. It was indeed an invitation from Louis Vuitton. Did she really get an invitation from Louis Vuitton? Lin Ji froze on the spot. Just as Yun Shursher was about to enter the VIP room, Lin Ji suddenly clenched her fists and grabbed her arm. She said sharply, "So what if you got an invitation? Who knows if this invitation is real or fake? Lin Ji, what do you want? Don't be rude." Chapter 1446. In that case, it's fine if you want to pick the gowns, but you'll have to wait until I'm done before you pick the rest. Yun Shirshir was instantly enraged by Lin Ji's words. Lin Ji's words were simple and straightforward. She wanted to express that she was the first to arrive, so she had the right to choose the gowns prepared by the brand first. Secondly, Yun Shirshir would get to pick the remaining gowns first. This was a huge humiliation. Lin Ji actually wanted her to pick the remaining gowns. Yun Shirshir's beautiful eyes widened in shock. She did not expect the other to make such an outrageous request so boldly. She coldly retorted, "On what basis?" "Why should I?" Yun Shirshir said expressionlessly. "Why should I let you pick first? Your words are too much." "Why should I?" "If you must ask why, then it's because my status is higher than yours. Because my net worth is higher than yours. Just based on these 2 points, you have to give in to me. Is this answer enough?" Lin Ji raised her head arrogantly. The space between her eyebrows was incomparably cold and aggressive, leaving no room for negotiation. Yun Shirshir's cold gaze fell on the hand that was holding her wrist tightly. She said coldly, "Let go." Qin Zhou walked out of the VIP room and saw this scene. His eyes flickered, and he rushed up and swatted Lin Ji's hand away. "Let go of your dirty hands. Don't touch our Shirshir." His protectiveness for Yun Shirshir was evident in his words and was on the verge of being revealed. Lin Ji took a few steps back in shock. She raised her head abruptly and looked at Qin Zhou in disbelief. She was obviously unwilling to accept this. "President Qin, what are you doing?" "I should be asking you what you're doing." "Keep your hands clean. Don't touch our Shirshir. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Qin Zhou paused. He glared at her menacingly and said in a cold voice, "Lin Ji, was I too polite to you just now? Do you think I'm good-tempered and easy to talk to, so you're bullying my artist? I'm warning you, you better know your place. If you dare to bully Shirshir again, I won't forgive you." "President Qin," Lin Ji cried out in surprise. Clearly, she found it hard to accept Qin Zhou's harsh words. However, Qin Zhou smiled coldly. "I have many methods that are enough to ruin your reputation in one night. Lin Ji, if you don't believe me, just wait and see. Today is the last chance I'm giving you. If I find out that you've bullied Shirshir again, don't blame me for being ruthless." After saying that, Qin Zhou grabbed Yun Shirshir's hand and turned to enter the VIP room, leaving Lin Ji standing there, dumbfounded and petrified. In the VIP room, Qin Zhou poked Yun Shirshir's head angrily. "Little idiot, why are you being bullied again when I'm not here for a while?" Yun Shirshir was also a little depressed. She lowered her head and sulked. Qin Zhou was still angry. "If you meet that Lin Ji in the future, don't be polite. If she scolds you once, you'll scold her 10 times. If she touches one of your fingers, you'll break all 10 of her fingers. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility." Yun Shirshir was petrified. She couldn't help but look into the distance. How could she not tell that Qin Zhou was such a violent person? Chapter 1447. Qin Zhou was still angry. "If you meet Lin Ji in the future, don't go easy on her. If she scolds you, you'll scold her back 10 times. If she touches one of your fingers, you'll break all 10 of her fingers. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility for it." Yun Shirshir was petrified. She couldn't help but look into the distance. How could she not tell that Qin Zhou was such a violent person? There were 3 VIP rooms in Louis Vuitton's studio. Qin Zhou had specially brought Yun Shirshir to the show early, so they took one room. Lin Ji took one room and started to urge the brand's representative to bring the gowns over so that she could pick first. Usually, one would have to change 2 or 3 outfits for a show. The bigger brands would have at least 4 outfits. Lin Ji was greedy and wanted to pick the best ones first, leaving the rest for Yun Shirshir to pick. However, would Qin Zhou let her have her way? Impossible. Moreover, who was Qin Zhou? In the past, when she was managing Gu Xingza, she had the connections of all the big brands in her hands. If she wanted to pick a gown, she should let Yun Shirshir pick first, and Lin Ji would pick the rest. Moreover, Qin Zhou had helped Yun Shirshir get the role of Louis Vuitton's brand ambassador in Greater China. Although this news hadn't been announced to the public yet, the contract had been officially signed. As the prospective ambassador, Louis Vuitton naturally had to create a good image for Yun Shirshir. Of course, Lin Ji didn't know about this. She really thought that Yun Shirshir had come all the way to the red carpet. If she knew that Yun Shirshir had accepted the invitation as the brand ambassador, she would be so angry that she would vomit blood. Therefore, when the representative of Louis Vuitton came over with the gowns, Lin Ji immediately went up to him and pretended to be reserved, saying that she wanted to pick the gown first. In the end, the representative politely said that she couldn't pick first. She would pick later. Although his words were polite and tactful, Lin Ji felt like she had been slapped in the face. She was a little unconvinced, but she pretended to be calm and asked, "Could it be that there's a bigger fashion superstar?" That person nodded and said politely, "We have to pick out the gown for the brand ambassador of the new season. Sorry for being rude." Lin Ji was embarrassed, but when she heard that the brand ambassador had the first pick, she didn't dare to object. After all, the identity of a brand ambassador was indeed more valuable than hers. However, when Lin Ji saw the person in charge lead the person holding the gown into Yun Shirshir's VIP room, she was so shocked that her eyes almost popped out. She was shocked and immediately rushed up. With an ugly expression she asked, "Did you enter the wrong room?" "No. This VIP room is used by Yun Shirshir. In China, she's just a newbie." You're not joking, are you?" The embarrassment and disbelief on Lin Ji's face were evident. She thought that the person in charge had made a mistake. Unexpectedly, the other party replied, "I didn't make a mistake. Louis Vuitton's brand ambassador for the new season in Greater China is Ms. Yun Shirshir." When Lin Ji heard this, her vision went dark and she almost lost her balance. The corners of her mouth twitched and she smiled awkwardly. "Are you sure? Yun Shirshir? She's the brand ambassador for the new season." Until now, there had only been one brand ambassador for Louis Vuitton in Greater China, and that was Gu Xingze. Chapter 1448. Even if she was the spokesperson for Louis Vuitton, it was just a product line under Louis Vuitton. This had already made many female celebrities grit their teeth in jealousy. To put it bluntly, she had to resort to underhanded means to snatch the resources from the other party's hands in order to take this endorsement deal. Lin Ji bit her lip hard, her eyes red with jealousy. Why? She couldn't figure it out. Lin Ji glared at the gowns, her face full of indignation. Qin Zhou opened the door and saw the person in charge. He shook his hand politely and exchanged a few pleasantries. He glanced at Lin Ji from the corner of his eye and smiled. "Hey! Why are you standing at the door? Why, do you want to try on the gowns first? But let our Yun Shirshir try them on first. We'll send them to you after she's done choosing." Lin Ji stomped her foot angrily. Humph. She turned around and went back to the VIP room. Qin Zhou rolled his eyes seductively and closed the door after welcoming the gowns in. Yun Shirshir flipped through the gowns. There were a total of 10 gowns sent to her. These were the best of the best, so she had to pick first. Qin Zhou let her pick 5 gowns first. 5? So many? Please, don't tell me you want to walk through the entire fashion week with just one gown? Qin Zhou glanced at her with disdain. Yun Shirshir shook her head. Suddenly, she picked up a haute couture gown and compared it to her body. Fortunately, she was tall. Otherwise, with these European and American brands, which were designed according to the model's height of 1.78 meters, it would be difficult to acclimatize to an Asian with a smaller frame. Lin Ji, who was only 1.58 meters tall, would probably cover her face and cry when it was her turn to pick out the gown. She couldn't even bring out the aura of these gowns. She didn't even know how high her stilettos would have to be to bring out her aura. Qin Zhou also went forward to pick out the gowns for her. However, no matter how he picked, he wasn't satisfied. This one doesn't have an aura. This one's color scheme is too old-fashioned. This one is too gaudy. The experienced Qin Zhou passed on a few gowns. In the end, he picked out 2 that were barely acceptable. Yun Shirshir was in tears. "Boss Qin, you're really picky." Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows, glanced at her and said coldly, "I'm not the one who picked it. Some of the gowns are too petite and can't bring out the aura." An arrow through the heart. Yun Shirshir was deeply hurt and wiped her tears. But it wasn't her fault. European and American models had broad shoulders, and their frames were not small. Although she was tall, she looked delicate and boneless. These gowns were not custom-made, so they did not bring out her aura. Try this one again. Qin Zhou carefully selected another one and threw it to her. Yun Shirshir gave it a try. Qin Zhou circled around her, crossed his arms, and looked her up and down. Then he reluctantly said, "Not bad." "Barely okay? Your frame is really small." Qin Zhou narrowed his eyes. "But there's nothing I can do about it. I was born with it." Just as he finished speaking, someone knocked on the door. Qin Zhou thought it was Lin Ji looking for trouble again. He walked over with an unfriendly expression. When he opened the door, he saw a fashionably dressed woman speaking in authentic Italian. "Hello. A gentleman has specially customized a gown for Miss Yun Shirshir. Is it convenient for you to send it in now?" "Who is it?" "Mr. Mu." Chapter 1449. Are you sure this gown was sent here? "Yes, sir. I can't be wrong. Come in." The man brought the gown in. It was a high-class gown with a Cheongsam design. The gown was embellished with blue and white porcelain, which complemented her temperament and figure. However, compared to other gowns, this gown was very conservative. Other than the shoulders, every part of the gown was covered. Qin Zhou lifted the gown and looked at it. He broke out in a cold sweat. This gown was beautiful, but there was nothing special about it. It was suitable for a fashion show, but it was too plain to walk the red carpet. It should at least show off some of her long legs. It was said that it was tailor-made according to Yun Shirshir's figure. "Mr. Mu?" Yun Shirshir touched the gown. She suddenly thought of who this Mr. Mu was. Qin Zhou helped Yun Shirshir into the gown. However, when she was trying it on, there was a knock on the door again. "Who is it?" Qin Zhou walked over and opened the door. He saw two people standing outside with gowns carefully. They were looking at each other. "You?" Qin Zhou was stunned. He looked at them again, and the corners of his lips twitched. "You are?" "Hello, we are here to deliver a custom-made gown for Miss Yun Shirshir." "Hello, we are here to deliver a custom-made gown for Miss Yun Shirshir." The two of them said almost at the same time. As soon as they finished speaking, the two of them were shocked. They looked at each other again and judged each other. Qin Zhou asked hesitantly, "Who sent the gown?" "Mr. Gu." "Mr. Yun." The two of them spoke at the same time again. Then they looked at each other again, as if they were competing secretly. Qin Zhou sighed and held his forehead. He waved his hand and stepped aside. "Send it in." The two of them squeezed through the doorway and fought to send the gown in. Hence, when Yun Shirshir stepped out of the dressing room after trying on her gown, she saw 3 more sets of gowns being sent into the spacious VIP room. The corners of her eyes twitched violently. One of them was a gift from Mr. Yun. It was a luxurious European-style haute couture. It was Louis Vuitton's new autumn collection. It was tailor-made, and the price was not cheap. The other 2 sets were gifts from Mr. Gu. Qin Zhou glanced at the style and immediately recognized that these 2 gowns were Gu Xing's aesthetic. He took another look at the design and was immediately speechless. These 2 sets of clothes were also custom-made and were not cheap. Just one of the rose-colored clothes was as high as 8 figures. How extravagant! Qin Zhou was speechless. Gu Xingza really put a lot of thought into Yun Shirshir. These 2 outfits were the works of a master. Although they weren't Louis Vuitton's new models, both sets were out of print. Only Gu Xingza, who had been friends with Louis Vuitton for many years, could have gotten it. Qin Zhou took a look at it. Because it was tailor-made, he guessed that Yun Shirshir would definitely look good in it. However, in comparison, the cheapao that Mr. Mu had sent over paled in comparison. Too conservative. It was not revealing at all. However, when walking the red carpet, it was important to be eye-catching. Therefore, Qin Zhou quickly asked Yun Shirshir to hurry up and change into it. Yun Shirshir had just changed into 2 outfits when there was a knock on the door again. Qin Zhou was stunned again and looked at the door. Who had sent the gown this time? Qin Zhou walked to the door. As soon as he opened it, he heard whispers outside. Chapter 1450. Oh my God! This gown is so beautiful. I heard this is Mark's? It's Jacob's work. It's so beautiful. I love this design element. It's Mark's out-of-print work. Qin Zhou opened the door and saw a man dressed like a gentleman standing at the door with a high-end fashion gown in his hands. Meanwhile, the stylists in the studio surrounded the gown one after another, their eyes filled with amazement and envy. Compared to this gown, the 10 gowns sent by the brand for this show were nothing. This gown was the real deal. It was breathtaking. Hello. Is it convenient for you to send the gown in now? Who sent this? Again. The man was also confused. Qin Zhou said seriously, what I mean is, who sent this gown? Hello, sir. This is the gown sent by Mr. Gong. It's an out-of-print Louis Vuitton gown. Qin Zhou was speechless. Who was Mr. Gong? When the gown was sent in, Yun Shishir happened to walk out after trying on the gown. When she saw that someone had sent in another piece of fashion, her legs went weak. Who sent this gown? Yun Shishir looked around. However, with just one glance, she was deeply stunned by this high-end gown. It was so beautiful. It was really beautiful. She was deeply amazed. This gown was simply breathtaking. This gown was different from the previous ones. It was a floor-length gown. However, the gown had a fluffy design, which accentuated her exquisite waistline. The most eye-catching part of this gown was the ink and wash elements throughout. The gradual ink color, from the design of the snow-white shoulders to the fluffy skirt, looked as if it had jumped out of an ink and wash painting from afar. It was like an immortal that had been banished from the mortal world. It was simply beautiful. It was otherworldly. It was truly otherworldly. Among all the gowns sent in from the VIP room, this was probably the only one that suited her the most. Even a picky person like Qin Zhou was deeply amazed by her beauty. Who was Mr. Gong? His taste was simply indescribable. This gown was perfect for walking the red carpet. There would be a China-style show at this year's Fashion Week, and this gown would fit the theme perfectly. It would definitely attract everyone's attention. Putting everything else aside, this gown alone was enough to guarantee that it would make the headlines. It was not because of anything else, but because this dress was a priceless and magnificent treasure. It was said that this gown was Mark's out-of-print design and was worth 9 figures. What an extravagant move. Qin Zhou could not help but sigh. Who exactly is this Mr. Gong? Mr. Gong? Yun Shishir was a little surprised. Was this gown sent by Mr. Gong? Yes. Qin Zhou nodded and glanced at her. Is this Mr. Gong your friend? Yun Shishir was stunned for a while. Then, her gaze fell on the dress and she smiled knowingly. She seemed to have guessed who this Mr. Gong was. Little Jie must have sent it over. But how did he know that she was at Fashion Week and that he would deliver a dress at such an opportune time? Shishir, try this gown on. You should look beautiful in it. Qin Zhou urged her. Yun Shishir nodded and carried the gown into the fitting room. About 10 minutes later, Yun Shishir changed into the gown with the help of her assistant. She lifted the hem of the dress and walked out of the fitting room. Chapter 1451. Yun Shishir was dressed in a gorgeous gown. It had a snow-white background with a gradual ink and wash pattern that extended from her waist all the way to the hem of the gown. Coupled with her silky black hair that reached her waist, her gorgeous makeup, and the rich Chinese style, she looked dazzling. She was too beautiful. So beautiful that no one could find a single flaw in it. Even Qin Zhou, who had an exceptionally sharp gaze, couldn't find any flaws in it. It was as if this gown was made for her. At that moment, Qin Zhou couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Who exactly was Mr. Gong, who had chosen this gown? He had such great taste. When this gown was worn by Yun Shishir, it instantly captured everyone's attention. Walking on the red carpet would definitely be a sight to behold. This gown was extremely compatible with Yun Shishir. Other people probably wouldn't be able to bring out the aura of this gown. As for the other gowns, it would probably be very difficult to bring out Yun Shishir's fairy-like beauty and elegance. A rare satisfied smile appeared on Qin Zhou's face. He praised, Shishir, you look so beautiful in this gown. Yun Shishir blushed charmingly. Boss Qin, it's rare for you to praise me like this. That's because it's really beautiful. I can't find a single flaw in it. Yun Shishir was a little surprised. Even Qin Zhou was praising her so openly. She must be really beautiful. She walked in front of the mirror. However, when the mirror reflected her fairy-like gown, Yun Shishir was stunned. Oh my god. It was really beautiful. Shishir, you'll wear this gown on the red carpet tonight. Qin Zhou instructed. Yun Shishir nodded. Then she glanced at the other gowns and asked tentatively, Then, what about the other gowns that were sent here? As for the rest, we'll leave them for the show. I feel that the effects of the other gowns are about the same. They're not as stunning as this one. You can pick 4 gowns. Qin Zhou left the choice in her hands. Yun Shishir picked 4 pieces. While she was choosing, her cell phone suddenly rang. Yun Shishir hurriedly picked up the phone. Gong Jie's mysterious and magnetic voice came from the other end. "Baby, do you like the gift I sent you?" When Yun Shishir heard his voice, she squinted her eyes and smiled. "Xiao Jie, it's you." Gong Jie snorted coldly and pretended to be angry. "Now you recognize my voice? I'm so touched." "Hey, don't make fun of me," Yun Shishir complained. Then her eyes curved slightly. "I've received your gift. I like it very much. Thank you." "For what?" Gong Jie was a little displeased. He didn't like her saying thank you to him. It seemed very distant. In the future, you're not allowed to say thank you or sorry to me. These 2 words, understand? All right. Yun Shishir naturally listened to him. "Xiao Jie, this gown is really beautiful. Your taste is really unique." "Of course. I'm very picky when it comes to beauty." Translator, Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios in the luxurious presidential suite of the Manhattan Hotel, Gong Jie stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in a bathrobe, looking at the dark city in the distance. He held the phone in his hand, but his tone was tender and affectionate. "A beautiful dress can only show its value when worn by you." Yun Shishir blushed. His words were full of love. Even Gong Jie couldn't feel how much he loved Yun Shishir. He wanted to spoil her to the bone. Chapter 1452. As soon as he found out about Yun Shishir's announcement, he began to look for a gown to wear on the red carpet. After looking around, he finally picked this one. He had spent a high price to buy this gown. At first, the financier was unwilling. This gown was a priceless treasure. Someone had once offered a 9-figure sum for it, but they did not get what they wanted. However, who was Gong Jie? He refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. He held a gun to the financier's head and half bought and half snatched the gown. In his eyes, only this gown was worthy of his sister. Other than his sister, no one else was worthy. His usual domineering style was undoubtedly reflected. "As long as sister likes it." Gong Jie paused for a moment and said, "It's just right for you to wear on the red carpet." He wanted his sister to appear beautiful in front of the camera. Yun Shishir could not help but laugh. "Won't this be too high profile? What are you afraid of? Sister is so beautiful. Is there anything wrong with being high profile?" Gong Jie retorted confidently. Yun Shishir was instantly speechless and could only smile. "Xiao Jie, I'm going to do my styling. I'll text you when I'm back." "Okay." Yun Shishir hung up the phone and was pushed by Qin Zhou to do the last step of her styling. After changing into the gown, she had to adjust her hairstyle. Qin Zhou instructed the stylist to give her a classic and gorgeous hairstyle. Coupled with the ink gown, she was simply too beautiful. Thus, when she walked out of the VIP room, she coincidentally bumped into Lin Ji, who had also changed into her gown. When Lin Ji saw Yun Shishir in her gorgeous gown, she was stunned. In an instant, she felt that the European-style gown on her paled in comparison. She had spent a lot of effort. In the end, when she walked out and saw Yun Shishir's gorgeous aura, she suddenly felt that her gown was too plain no matter how she looked at it. She was completely outclassed. They hadn't even stepped on the red carpet, but the difference between them was obvious. Lin Ji thought that Yun Shishir's gown was a gift from the brand and felt that Yun Shishir had stolen her limelight. Thus, she said unhappily, "This gown should have been mine." She was being unreasonable, but Yun Shishir couldn't be bothered with her and didn't even look at her. Lin Ji felt even more indignant. She said angrily, "I should have picked the gown first. Yun Shishir, take it off and let me wear it." Qin Zhou couldn't take it anymore. "Lin Ji, are you crazy? Did he take medicine when he went out? Don't be unreasonable here." "Unreasonable?" Lin Ji's face flushed red from Qin Zhou's scolding. "Qin Zhou, don't think you can bully others just because you have some background and tricks up your sleeve," she argued. "You're clearly bullying me, aren't you? Why should Yun Shishir have the first pick of the gowns sent by the brand? Isn't it just to make fun of me?" "Make fun of you?" When Qin Zhou heard that, he sneered. Lin Ji, how shameless are you that I have to put in the effort to make fun of you? Don't think too highly of yourself. You're making a fool of yourself. I don't care. Lin Ji felt extremely indignant and started to throw a tantrum. Anyway, this gown belongs to me. Give it back to me. Get lost. Qin Zhou had completely lost his patience. He waved his hand as if he was shooing away an annoying fly. He was so annoyed by this Lin Ji. Chapter 1453. Lin Ji stared at him in a daze. Her eyes reddened when she heard Qin Zhou tell her to get lost so rudely. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she choked out, "You guys are too much. You guys are too much." Qin Zhou imitated Lin Ji's coquettish and pretentious face to the point that it was carved into the wood. The people in the studio couldn't help but laugh. Lin Ji's face grew paler and paler as she glared at him with bloodshot eyes. If looks could kill, Qin Zhou would have died 10,000 times over. Yun Shishir's face turned cold. How could Lin Ji be so shameless? She rarely used the word shameless to describe a girl. However, Lin Ji was worthy of the word. Female celebrities in the entertainment industry were all like that. If they had a chance to climb up the ranks, they would use all means and resources to their advantage. Oh, don't show such a disgusting face. Don't you feel disgusted? This gown doesn't belong to you. Even if it did, such a noble gown would look like a cheap gown on you. Why don't you take a look at your own body? Your legs are so short. Can they hold up the aura of this gown? Qin Zhou mocked her mercilessly. Lin Ji's face was completely peeled off, leaving nothing behind. Lin Ji's lips trembled, but she couldn't refute him. Yun Shishir was too dazzling at this moment. Even if she didn't want to admit it, she had to admit that this gown suited Yun Shishir very well. It was too beautiful. She couldn't refute him at all. People were like this. Once they faced someone who was more dazzling and outstanding than them, they would feel ashamed of their inferiority. At the same time, they wouldn't have the confidence to argue. He could only watch helplessly as Qin Zhou led Yun Shishir into a luxurious Bentley and sped off. Lin Ji watched them leave with a vicious gaze. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth. In the car, Qin Zhou edited the photo that Yun Shishir had taken in the VIP room and uploaded it to Weibo. There was a professional retoucher in the team. With a little bit of effort, he adjusted the color of the image and uploaded it. With Yun Shishir's unique condition, she didn't need to spend too much effort in the post-production process. She just needed to adjust the color a little and it was done. As soon as the photo was uploaded, the media who had been on standby immediately began to publicize it. Beauty reaches new heights. Beautiful beyond the heavens. Photo killer. The draft was inseparable from these praises, changing the soup but not the medicine. Weibo instantly blew up as well. Yun Shishir had been in the limelight recently. Coupled with her participation in the Milan Fashion Week, she was in the limelight. The first thing Qin Zhou did was to upload the beautiful photos taken by the studio and seize the initiative. Thus, the prelude to the Fashion Week began. Manhattan Hotel. Presidential Suite. Gong Jie sat on the sofa, browsing Weibo. He did not have a Weibo account before, but when he learned that Yun Shishir had opened a verified account, he secretly registered an account and only followed Yun Shishir and Yun Shishir's studio accounts. Yun Shishir's studio account was carefully managed by Qin Zhou. Therefore, he saw the photo that Yun Shishir's studio had released immediately. Chapter 1454. She lifted her chin slightly. Her meticulously styled hair made her face look as fair as jade. From the moment he saw this gown, he was certain that his sister would be stunningly beautiful in it. Hence, he took a photo of it without hesitation. However, it turned out that this gown was indeed quite suitable. Gong Jie could not help but smile when he saw this photo. Sis is so beautiful. He sighed softly, not bothering to hide the amazement in his eyes. Yun Shishir walking the red carpet in the gown he had sent her made him feel extremely satisfied. On the other hand, a certain man at the airport was holding his phone. When he clicked on a Weibo post and saw Yun Shishir posing in the ink-style gown in the photo, his eyes darkened. Mu Yaja could not help but furrow his brows deeply. This gown was too revealing. Although the skirt was long and covered a pair of beautiful legs, due to the strapless design, almost all the scenery below her shoulders and above her breasts were exposed. He did not like her dressing so conspicuously. All the beauty on her body should be enjoyed by him alone. Hence, when he learned that she was going to the fashion show, He immediately sent someone to send a gown to her at the thought of those female celebrities wearing revealing outfits in the past fashion shows. Only a pair of fragrant shoulders were exposed, and the rest was covered tightly. He thought that she would wear it on the red carpet when she learned that he was the one who had sent it. However, the photo she uploaded was of this gown. This made him especially unhappy. It was too revealing. He did not like it. He especially did not like her dressing like this. When Minyu rushed over with the plane ticket, he saw Mu Yaja in a terrible mood. His hand was gripping his phone so tightly that it turned white and the veins on the back of his hand were bulging. Boss seems to be very angry. Minyu stole a glance from the corner of his eye and saw Yun Shirshir's stunning photo on the phone screen. His eyes were filled with amazement. Mu Yaja sensed his gaze and looked up abruptly to give him a warning glare. Feeling awkward, Minyu immediately pretended not to see it. He whistled and looked around. Have you sent that gown over? Yes. I've sent it over. Minyu immediately replied. I immediately called the higher-ups of Louis Vuitton after you gave me your instructions. I specially selected a relatively conservative gown. Is it the Chong Sam you showed me? That's right. How? Isn't Madam wearing it? As soon as Minyu finished speaking, he saw Mu Yaja's face darken, so he obediently shut his mouth. All right, Madam must not be wearing it. That's why the boss is so angry. Boss, Madam looks great in this gown. Minyu exclaimed in admiration. However, it didn't matter if he didn't say this, but once he did, a certain old cadre's face became even gloomier. Minyu's bootlicking was definitely from the wrong angle. Looking at Mu Yaja's darkening face, Minyu decided to keep his mouth shut. The more he spoke, the more wrong he felt. Mu Yaja turned off his phone and boarded the plane. It was about a 10-hour journey. This stupid woman, I must settle the score with her. Yu sat in front of the computer and scrolled through Weibo. She saw the photo uploaded by Yun Shirshir's studio. Her first reaction was that it was exceptionally stunning. Chapter 1455. His mommy looked stunning in this gown. She looked like a real fairy and was indescribably beautiful. His second reaction, however, was disappointment. He had clearly sent a gown to his mommy. Why didn't she wear it? He had spent so much time choosing the dress so that his mommy could wear it to the fashion show. However, in the photo that was posted on Weibo, she was wearing a different dress. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed and frustrated. Xiao Yichen stood at the side and looked at Yun Shirshir's elegant and luxurious posture in the photo. He instantly turned into a fanboy. Mommy is so beautiful. It took him a long time to resist the urge to pounce on the screen and lick it. Yu glanced at him coldly. Mu Yichen, you're really promising. Xiao Yichen defended himself, feeling wronged. Why? Mommy is so beautiful. Don't you think so? Yu was stunned. His gaze fell on the photo again. As he looked at his mommy in the photo, his eyes could not help but become infatuated. Beautiful. He couldn't help but sigh. Although his mommy did not wear the gown he had sent and was rather disappointed, she did look beautiful in it. The little lad instantly felt satisfied. Just as he was still staring at the beautiful photo in a daze and could not take his eyes off it, his phone rang. When he picked up the call, he could hear Gong Jie's slightly smug tone. Gong Jie. Little nephew, have you seen the beautiful photo your mommy uploaded on Weibo? Yu. He was stunned for a moment and then narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Are you following mommy's Weibo too? Aha. Gong Jie admitted it frankly. His Weibo account was created for Yun Shirshir, and he only followed the accounts of Yun Shirshir and her studio. He only followed Yun Shirshir's updates. Hearing his smug tone, Yun Tianyu wondered who he was. Being meticulous and intelligent, he immediately smelled something fishy. Did you give mommy this gown? Aha. Gong Jie's tone became even more smug as he asked smugly. The gown your mommy is wearing is carefully selected by me. Is she beautiful? It was actually him. In an instant, Yu felt indignant. It was not perfect. He thought that Yun Shirshir's gown was arranged by the brand, but he did not expect it to be a gift from Gong Jie. He was obviously here to show off his prowess. Ah, I can't accept this. Uncle, are you showing off your aesthetic sense to me? Yu snorted. Gong Jie smiled as well. Her smile made the boy feel even more uncomfortable. It was sour. Yu Yu unceremoniously hung up the call. He crossed his arms and leaned against the computer chair angrily as he stared at Yun Shirshir's beautiful photo. His little face looked like a pink bun. Xiao Yichen, on the other hand, was still sprawled in front of the computer as he stared at Yun Shirshir's beautiful photo in infatuation. Holding his little face, his eyes turned into crescents. "Mommy is so beautiful. So beautiful. So beautiful." Yu Yu was flustered. "Shut up." With that, he closed Weibo, stood up, walked to the bookshelf, grabbed a reference book, and sat on the sofa to read it. Xiao Yichen muttered under his breath. "What's wrong? Why are you angry again for no reason? Be quiet." Yu Yu could not help rebuking him and continued reading. Chapter 1456. By the time Qin Zhou and Yun Shirshir arrived at the venue, there were already quite a number of female celebrities present, even though it was considered early. However, these female celebrities weren't big shots. After all, big shots were all about being the last to appear. The later they appeared, the more prominent their status would be. These female celebrities all relied on media invitations to get into Fashion Week. They were all there to ride on the popularity of Fashion Week. At Fashion Week, the stars were shining and the lights were flashing. Various female celebrities were competing with each other among the media. They were constantly styling and accepting the baptism of the media's spotlight. Getting into Fashion Week was like getting a diploma from the Fashion University. Their agents also got a ticket to negotiate overseas brand endorsements. It was much easier than working hard to appear in a literary film that no one cared about and squeezing onto the red carpet of an international film festival. However, how to improve one's fashion skills in just 7 days depended on each person's attainments. A show lasted at most 10 minutes. Before the show started, the celebrities had to socialize with various celebrities. Since it was Fashion Week, watching the show was of utmost importance. Just like domestic press conferences, there was an unwritten rule that all shows would start half an hour later than the scheduled time. According to a luxury brand's PR, this 30 minutes was specially reserved for the guests to socialize. For example, some celebrities would use this time to get close to the brand's executives and greet the good sisters that they met by chance. In order to watch the show, the celebrities spent a lot of energy on dressing and styling. In addition to carefully choosing clothes and matching styles, just combing their hair and makeup would take a few hours. The actual time they had to watch the show was only enough to listen to a few songs. Usually, a brand press conference would last about 5 minutes. There would be more than 30 sets of the latest clothes on display. Some big shows would have more clothes. The models would go on stage one after another, and it would be over in 10 minutes at most. When the show was over, many celebrities would immediately get up and leave in a hurry because they had to rush to the next show. Some celebrities were also in a hurry to greet the media at the door. Qin Zhou arrived early with Yun Shirshir to introduce her to the top executives of various fashion brands, producers, and directors. After all, she was a newcomer. Although Qin Zhou had invested a lot of resources in her, she still had many shortcomings. In just 10 minutes, Yun Shirshir was introduced to the 3 Hollywood investors by Qin Zhou. A grand introduction was made in front of them. The investors were very satisfied with Yun Shirshir's temperament and qualifications. Yun Shirshir's face was a classic beauty. In Hollywood, she was very popular. Qin Zhou's social skills were absolutely top-notch. He negotiated a job for Yun Shirshir on the spot. Recently, Hollywood was preparing to shoot a commercial blockbuster with the theme of American heroism. In recent years, the backbone of Hollywood had been increasingly migrating to the mainland market. In terms of casting, they paid more attention to adding Asian faces. With the connections he had accumulated in Hollywood, he managed to secure a role for her on the spot. Although she was just a supporting role with a small screen, being able to show her face in Hollywood and further her studies was also the best way to raise her status. Chapter 1457. 10 minutes before the show started, Lin Ji and a group of female celebrities arrived. It wasn't that they were putting on airs. As a rising star in the entertainment industry, Lin Ji couldn't wait to get to the show as soon as possible. She wanted to grab more attention and interact with more celebrities. However, Lin Ji and the other female celebrities were delayed at the entrance for a long time because of a problem with their passes. By the time she rushed to the show, Yun Shirshir had already finished taking photos with various celebrities and was seated at the show. Unfortunately, just as Lin Ji was about to rush to the scene to attract more attention from the media, Han Yuyan arrived. Han Yuyen was already a senior figure in the fashion industry. She had worked with many famous brands and celebrities. She could be considered a veteran in the industry. With her around, Lin Ji couldn't steal the limelight at all. She didn't dare to. With Han Yuyen's status, even if she wanted to, she didn't have the guts. Therefore, she could only watch as the media rushed to Han Yuyen with their cameras raised. Han Yuyen stood on the red carpet in a custom-made Chanel gown. At this moment, she was the absolute star of the show. Many domestic and foreign media surrounded her like stars surrounding the moon. Her every move was the focus of everyone's attention. In contrast, Lin Ji looked calm and at ease. At this moment, in front of her, there were many people at the entrance. As a rising star in the fashion industry, no one paid attention to her. Moreover, her gown was left behind by Yun Shirshir. Her starlight was dim and no one cared. Lin Ji hated Yun Shirshir to the core. She wanted to cut this stumbling block into pieces. If she hadn't stepped in, she would have been the one to wear that gown. Then, in today's show with that gown, she should have been the center of attention. But now, Lin Ji looked at the scene where no one cared about her. She felt so wrong that she wanted to cry. Her assistant suddenly saw a push notification on Weibo. She clicked on it and saw a photo of Yun Shirshir and the Empress Dowager. She showed the phone to Lin Ji. Lin Ji took a look and her eyes turned red with anger. Empress Dowager was just a nickname. The Empress Dowager's real name was Karl Lagerfeld. He was the artistic director of Chanel and was regarded as the mascot of Fashion Week. There was a famous saying in the fashion industry. He was not a real man until he reached the Great Wall. It would be a pity if he could not take a photo with the Empress Dowager. No matter how famous a celebrity was, they would try their best to ask the brand's PR to arrange a photo with the Empress Dowager. Yun Shirshir's photo with the Empress Dowager had stolen the limelight. Qin Zhou had a close relationship with Chanel's PR department. Therefore, he arranged for Yun Shirshir to meet Karl. However, to Qin Zhou's surprise, Yun Shirshir's English was unexpectedly proficient, and she was able to talk fluently with various celebrities. This was something that Lin Ji couldn't compare to. Lin Ji's English was close to zero. Lin Ji wasn't the only one. Many domestic celebrities' English wasn't up to standard. Many celebrities would rather miss the opportunity to interact with the big shots than embarrass themselves at the Fashion Week. Fashion Week was an important arena of Fashion Week. Other than watching the shows, taking photos, and taking street photos, there was also the brand dinner. At this time, Yun Shirshir, the top student and campus belle, learned English in her 4 years of university hard work. Chapter 1458. Lin Ji's face darkened. The thought of Yun Shirshir stealing the limelight at the Fashion Week made her so angry that she wanted to smash her phone. The show was about to start. Lin Ji had no choice but to look around and find a large chibi doll of the Empress Dowager. She reluctantly took a photo with it to prove her presence at the Fashion Week. Yun Shirshir and Qin Zhou arrived at the venue and prepared to sit down under the arrangement of the brand's public relations team. Lin Ji's seat was in the front row of the show's VIP section. However, when Yun Shirshir walked to her seat, she found a problem. Her seat was taken by someone else. It was a very familiar face. Li Mengqi, an international supermodel and the previous spokesperson of Louis Vuitton. Yun Shirshir was stunned. She thought she had gone to the wrong seat, but after looking around, she was sure that her seat was taken. The VIP section of the show was a symbol of status. Now, all the major brands knew that the mainland was the future of all luxury goods. Pleasing the female stars from China was an important part of their public relations activities. It was definitely a glorious thing to be able to sit in the front row of the show. Many female stars wanted to steal the limelight, but not everyone could. Sitting in the front row and sitting next to each other became a bargaining chip for all the female celebrities to compete with. For example, being able to sit with a Hollywood superstar was definitely a symbol of infinite dignity. The seat next to Anna, the editor-in-chief of the American version of Vogue, also attracted attention. However, some people couldn't get the seat, so they came up with despicable tricks. For example, they rushed to the show early, tore off the paper with the stars' names on it, and sat down themselves. When the real celebrities entered the venue, they found that there was another person in their seat. When the lights dimmed and the show was about to start, they couldn't say anything and could only squeeze in. Li Mengqi must have arrived early. When she saw the name Yun Shirshir on the front row, she felt strange. She tore it off without hesitation and sat down with a clear conscience. Yun Shirshir said politely, "Hello, this is my seat." However, Li Mengqi didn't seem to hear what she said. Her eyes were still looking straight ahead, treating her like air. Yun Shirshir reminded her again, "Miss, you're sitting in my seat. Could you please move aside?" She raised her voice slightly. Seeing that Li Mengqi was still ignoring her, Yun Shirshir spoke again in English. He raised his voice slightly, attracting the attention of the surrounding people, who all looked over. Only then did Li Mengqi raise her head, but she asked in a neutral tone, "This is your seat, but I don't see your name written on it." The mockery in his words was obvious. Yun Shirshir was speechless. Obviously, Li Mengqi didn't know her. She was an international supermodel and had been developing her career on the runway overseas all year round. This time, because of her schedule, she didn't manage to get an invitation letter. Therefore, she rushed to the show early and occupied a seat. She saw that the name Yun Shirshir next to Han Yuyen was a little unfamiliar, so she tore it off without thinking. Chapter 1459. Milan Fashion Week was a strict fashion show. The brand's PR team would check the seats before the show started and invite the celebrities to their own seats. Li Mengqi panicked when she heard that. She thought that this newcomer would be easy to bully, but she didn't expect that this person's attitude would be so strong. He didn't back down at all and didn't intend to give her any face. Her exquisitely made-up face immediately darkened. She felt uneasy when Yun Shirshir said that she was going to ask the brand's PR team to check the seats. This was Milan Fashion Week, a place where big shots and celebrities gathered. "You win." Li Mengqi wasn't stupid enough to embarrass herself in such an occasion. She glared at Yun Shirshir with her sharp eyes but pretended to be reserved. She stood up and walked away without saying a word. Yun Shirshir rolled her eyes in her heart. There were so many shameless people. Another one popped up after she beat one. How could there be so many shameless people? There was Lin Ji and now there was Li Mengqi. She didn't know how many disgusting faces she would have to face in the next few days. Yun Shirshir sat down. Before the show started, the big shots entered the venue. Han Yuyen and Gu Xingze arrived one after the other. As Louis Vuitton's brand partner, Han Yuyen was dressed luxuriously and looked domineering. Gu Xingze was Louis Vuitton's only brand ambassador in Greater China. His seat was arranged to be on the right of Yun Shirshir. When Gu Xingze arrived, he saw Yun Shirshir in her gown. His expectant eyes turned cold as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them. He sat down beside her and sized her up silently. Yun Shirshir smiled and nodded at him. Gu Xingze couldn't help but ask softly, "Shirshir, don't you like the gown I gave you?" Yun Shirshir was slightly stunned. She said apologetically, "Qin Zhou liked this gown and wanted me to walk the red carpet. I'll wear the dress you gave me at the banquet." The more he spoke, the dimmer Gu Xingze's eyes became. He shook his head and whispered, It's fine. There's no need to explain. You do look beautiful in this dress." However, even though he said that, the loneliness on his face could not be concealed. Yun Shirshir couldn't help but feel a little guilty. She whispered, "I'm sorry. I've let you down." "It's okay, you don't have to apologize." Gu Xingze smiled. Seeing that her hair was a little messy, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. This intimate act attracted the attention of many spotlights. When Han Yuyen arrived, she was also deeply shocked by Yun Shirshir's classical and gorgeous gown. So beautiful. She was so beautiful that people couldn't help but feel ashamed of their inferiority. Even though she was dressed very elegantly today, compared to Yun Shirshir, she paled in comparison. Seeing this, in order to avoid being compared with Yun Shirshir, she switched places with her friend. This was where she couldn't compare to Han Yuyen. In this aspect, Han Yuyen knew when to advance and when to retreat. She wasn't stupid enough to be in the same frame with someone who would steal her limelight. That was a big taboo. She wouldn't give Yun Shirshir the chance to do so. Chapter 1460. The show was short. It ended in about 10 minutes. After the show, with Qin Zhou's warning, she struggled to maintain her elegant look. She felt physically and mentally exhausted. After the show ended, Yun Shirshir was dragged by Qin Zhou to take the top photographer from the country to the street shoot. As an artist directly invited by the brand's public relations department would arrange for 1 or 2 magazines to shoot the cover of the new fashion show this year. The artists invited by the media would also be responsible for a series of street shoots. For a star like Lin Ji, even if she didn't have such planned work to do, the reporters from all over the world who had been waiting at the entrance of the show could help increase her exposure. At the end of the day, Yun Shirshir was so tired that she was about to collapse. She rarely wore high heels. Hence, when she went back to her room and took off her high heels, her heels were already red and swollen with blisters. She gently rubbed her heels and grimaced in pain. What a sin! In the past, when she saw celebrities rushing to the front page of the Fashion Week, it seemed glamorous, but she didn't know that there was so much blood and tears behind it. It wasn't easy for everyone. Yun Shirshir sighed in her heart. Qin Zhou stood at the door and gave her a concise summary of tomorrow's draft. He told her to rest early and left. Lastly, he didn't forget to warn her that she could only have a piece of bread for dinner. Yun Shirshir felt miserable. She dragged the heavy gift and hung it in the closet. Then, she plunged into the bathroom and soaked in the bathtub. The moment her body was immersed in the warm water, she sighed contentedly and fell limp. It's so comfortable. After a hard day's work, taking a bath was one of life's greatest pleasures. She dripped a few drops of rose essential oil and then started to soak in the bath comfortably. As she soaked, she was so tired that she fell asleep in the bathtub. Yun Shirshir was awakened by the rapid and irritating sound of the doorbell. She woke up abruptly and opened her eyes. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The doorbell was still ringing. Over and over again, she didn't get tired of it. Who is it? Qin Zhou? Yun Shirshir furrowed her brows. She had some doubts in her heart. She got out of the bathtub, washed off the foam on her body, put on a bathrobe, and walked into the living room. The doorbell was still ringing. However, gradually, the person outside the door seemed to have lost his patience and became increasingly anxious and hurried. Yun Shirshir was so nervous that she tightened her clothes. Who could it be? It couldn't be Qin Zhou. After she came to her senses, she suddenly recalled Qin Zhou's warning. If you're alone in a hotel, no matter who rings the doorbell, don't open the door. If I need you for anything, I'll call you first. My assistant is right next to you. If you need anything, just call her number. You have to remember that this is not within the country, but overseas. Public security overseas was not as good as in China. Violent incidents often occurred in hotels. Also, as a public figure you have to know how to protect yourself. Therefore, before doing anything, he had to first confirm his own safety. No matter who rings the doorbell, don't open the door, just in case. She immediately found her phone and wanted to call Qin Zhou to confirm. His phone had run out of battery and shut down automatically. It would take 15 minutes to charge it. Yun Shirshir sat in the living room and looked in the direction of the door. She didn't dare to move for a long time. Chapter 1461. She remembered Qin Zhou's instructions and did not dare to open the door for strangers. After a long time, there was no movement outside the door. Yun Shirshir walked to the door and suddenly found a peephole on the door. She opened it and looked outside, only to see an empty corridor. Could it be a waiter? She shrugged and returned to the sofa. Her phone was already charged and turned on. She logged into WeChat, found Qin Zhou, and sent a few messages. Someone was ringing the doorbell crazily just now. It was so scary. Hey, could there be perverts in this hotel? Boss Qin, I'm so scared. I'm so scared that a bad uncle will come and kidnap me. Being overseas, the signal was a little slow. It took a long time for the message to be sent. Yun Shirshir complained about the broken network in the hotel. After a while, Qin Zhou replied. Did you open the door? Yun Shirshir replied. No. Didn't you tell me not to open the door no matter who it was? I've always followed your instructions. Qin Zhou. Then he replied with an eye-rolling emoji. Are you still ringing the doorbell? Yun Shirshir replied. No, I just walked to the door and looked through the peephole. There was no one outside. After waiting for a few seconds, Qin Zhou replied, don't open the door. Protect yourself. If there's anything, I'll call you. Yun Shirshir replied with a smile. Okay. After a while, Qin Zhou suddenly sent another message. Yun Shirshir, you're walking the red carpet at the banquet tomorrow. Who are you going with? Yun Shirshir fell silent. I'm going alone. Qin Zhou rolled his eyes again. Are you crazy? You're actually saying that you're going alone at such an important event. You're a newcomer walking the red carpet. You can't hold up the atmosphere. Yoon Shurshur, did she have a choice? Other than walking the red carpet alone, who else could she pull? She was unfamiliar with this place. Qin Zhou replied, You're walking with Xingxia at the banquet tomorrow. Yoon Shurshur was confused. Didn't Xingxia have a date? Qin Zhou heartlessly said, Her female companion was kicked out by me at the last moment. Yoon Shurshur was confused again. Boss Qin, you're so domineering. Qin Zhou said matter-of-factly, Isn't that nonsense? Xingxia is an artist that I used to manage. With his resources, it's just a matter of words for me to get them. Make some preparations tomorrow. You must control your aura and suppress the crowd. There will be local media present at the scene. When the time comes, I will get them to give you the headlines. Yoon Shurshur, Qin Zhou, point, what point? Wash up and go to bed early. I'll wake you up on time tomorrow morning. Yoon Shurshur raised her hands in surrender. Fine. I'm going to sleep. Qin Zhou, good night. Yoon Shurshur, good night. Yoon Shurshur put down her phone and walked to the bathroom. She picked up the hairdryer and began to dry her hair strand by strand. Her hair was very long and plentiful. If she tied it into a bundle, it would be a little difficult for her to hold it with one hand. Mu Shi often told her that she was envious of her beautiful black hair. She even kept saying that with long hair like hers, when she became famous in the future, she would not need any post-production to take on those shampoo and conditioner commercials. She would be as smooth and beautiful as her hair. Yoon Shurshur only smiled when she heard that. She had inherited Mu Qingqing's hair. When she was young, she still remembered that her mother also had a head of smooth black hair. After washing her hair, she would often sit by the bed and comb it over and over again. That scene was really beautiful. Chapter 1462. The noise from the hairdryer was very loud. She brushed her hair with one hand and held the hairdryer with the other. However, from the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow flash past the door from the mirror. Startled, she quickly turned around and looked in the direction where she had caught a glimpse of the shadow earlier. At this moment, there was no one. It was as if what she saw was just an illusion. However, could it be an illusion? Her vision was well protected. How could she have seen wrongly? She clearly saw a shadow flash past. Yoon Shurshur's heart skipped a beat. She was still in shock. The door was closed properly. How could someone come in? The hotel's door required a card to be swiped to enter. Unless it was the hotel's management staff who had a backup card, no one could enter. Who's there? She yelled loudly. However, there was no response. Yoon Shurshur clenched her fists nervously. She walked out of the bathroom and scanned the huge living room with a bewildered gaze. However, there was no suspicious trace at all. She was staying in the hotel's luxurious suite. Other than the bedroom, there was also a living room. However, there was no one here. Could it be that her eyes were really playing tricks on her? Yoon Shurshur frowned tiredly. Perhaps she was too tired. These few days, her schedule was packed to the brim. There was not much space for her to rest. She was probably too tired, so her eyes were playing tricks on her. Thinking of this, she calmed down. She returned to the bathroom and dried her hair. She tied the knot on her bathrobe and walked to the bedroom. Just as she pushed the bedroom door open, a cold wind blew in through the window. She was stunned and couldn't help but frown. Why was the window open? She remembered that she had closed the window and drawn the curtains. Now, the window was wide open. Because the hotel was on a higher floor, the wind kept blowing in from the window, causing the curtains to flutter. Yoon Shurshur looked puzzled for a moment. She walked over and closed the window and the curtains. In an instant, the room returned to a dead silence. She was acutely aware that she was not alone in the room. Her whole body froze and her heart was beating like thunder. Yoon Shurshur bit her lips tightly. Her frozen body was unable to move. Her awareness had always been sharper than others. Just now, the wind outside the window was whistling. However, after the window and door were closed, the huge bedroom suddenly became quiet. Hence, she could clearly sense that there was another unfamiliar presence in the room. This person's aura was terrifyingly aggressive, like a ferocious beast that had its eyes on its prey. She could even feel that the pair of eyes that were fixed on her back covetously, as if they wanted to burn through her back. Who? Yoon Shurshur's eyes. She didn't even have time to turn to defend herself. A's eyes. She saw a tall figure's close was approaching her. She could see his faces. Bams! A powerful body pressed down on her. He pressed her firmly against the cold floor-to-ceiling window. Ah! Chapter 1463. Let go. Let go of me. Yoon Shusher started to struggle violently. The man behind her suddenly lowered his body and lifted up the corner of her bathrobe roughly. That scorching sensation, along with a hint of anger, penetrated her in an instant. The force was so strong that it could not wait to penetrate her. Ah! The penetration, which was filled with anger, almost made her scream. Yoon Shusher was shocked. However, in the next second, she smelled a familiar fragrance. She was suddenly startled awake. Just who was this familiar and enchanting fragrance coming from? Muyaja? She turned her head. However, before she could look up, the man lowered his head and sealed her lips fiercely. He entered her and took possession of her. With her lips in his breath connected with hers intimately. He let out a low sigh of satisfaction. Yoon Shusher widened her eyes. With the faint moonlight shining in from the window, she saw the handsome face of the man in front of her. Muyaja's eyes, which were filled with anger, landed firmly on her face. However, this pair of eyes seemed to be slightly sharp. How could it be him? Yoon Shusher was shocked at first. However, when she noticed the sharp anger in his eyes, she felt even more depressed. He seemed to be angry? However, he did not give her much space to think. He held her tightly in his arms and took possession of her. He was fierce and urgent. She could not help but fall into a romantic atmosphere. The room was filled with the ambiguous atmosphere of love. Muyaja wanted her. He was going crazy. How long had it been since he had sex with her? He could no longer remember. He only remembered how much he wanted to smash his computer when he saw the reality show, The Love Diary. When he thought of his woman in the show in front of the camera, with a shy smile on her face and a spoon in her hand, feeding another man, he had nowhere to vent his anger. When he found out that she was going to attend the Milan Fashion Week, he specially ordered his assistant to pick a gown from the Louis Vuitton headquarters and send it to her. However, she did not wear it. Instead, she wore another revealing gown. His anger was hard to quell. Could it be that this woman didn't know that he had never allowed anyone else to witness her beauty? Everything about her, be it beauty or sweetness, should be enjoyed by him alone. However, she had displayed her beauty in front of everyone other than him. He was very angry. He found out which hotel she was staying at and pressed the doorbell. No one opened the door for a long time. At that instant, his heart was filled with anxiety. He thought she was in some kind of danger. Or perhaps, he had encountered some inhuman unspoken rules. Perhaps she was inexperienced, so she didn't know the depth of Fashion Week. He knew the unspoken rules of Fashion Week like the back of his hand. In the past, he had received invitations to attend several Fashion Weeks. Many of the guests attending the Fashion Week were celebrities from all walks of life. Some artists would send themselves to the hotels where these celebrities were staying in order to advance their career. Even if some artists didn't have such awareness, some companies would still do the same. If the artist refused, he would force the issue. During the Fashion Week, there were a lot of dirty things happening in unknown corners. Chapter 1464. While she was blow-drying her hair, he sat in the room and waited for her. While he was waiting for her, she received a WeChat notification on her cell phone. Someone had sent her a message. However, the sender was Gu Xingzi's profile picture. Muyaja glanced at it from the corner of his eye and saw Gu Xingzi's name. Somehow, he unlocked the phone and read the message. He knew very well that this was her private matter. However, no matter who sent the message, he wouldn't ask about it. The only thing he hated was Gu Xingzi's name. Even now, he still couldn't forget the scene from that day. In one of the scenes in the Green Apple, he stood at the door and watched with his own eyes as Yoon Shusher held Gu Xingzi's face in her hands and kissed him passionately. What Yoon Shusher didn't know was that he was trembling with anger as he stood at the door and watched the scene unfold. He was obsessed with emotional cleanliness. Whether it was physical or spiritual, he didn't want to see her being overly intimate with anyone. His possessiveness towards her was deeply rooted in his bones. Even if it was an act, a kiss, or a hug, he wouldn't allow it. That day, he returned home early, only to see such a scene. His chest was filled with anger and he was about to explode. He tried his best to suppress his anger and didn't explode on the spot. However, Mu Yaja still remembered the look in his eyes when he looked at Gu Xingze. At that moment, when Gu Xingze hugged Yun Shirshir, there was a trace of intense struggle and agitation in his eyes. No one understood a man better than a man. Mu Yaja could see that Gu Xingze's love for Yun Shirshir was at odds with his complicated emotions. Gu Xingze acted out that scene vividly portraying Yin Dongyu's conflicting and intense emotions. However, was his acting really that good? He didn't think so. Words could deceive people, but at that moment, the emotions and longing in Gu Xingze's eyes could not deceive anyone. Others might not be able to tell, but Mu Yaja could tell what Gu Xingze was thinking about his woman. Gu Xingze liked her. Perhaps this feeling could no longer be described simply with the word like. His desire for her could not be hidden from him. It was more than just liking. In the first episode of The Love Diary, the scene of Gu Xingze playing the piano for her was still vivid in her mind. Yun Shirshir couldn't help but cry because Gu Xingze's voice was so moving and emotional that everyone present couldn't help but cry. However, Mu Yaja knew very well that Gu Xingze had integrated his inexplicable feelings for Yun Shirshir into his song. This man had to be guarded against. He opened the WeChat message and saw Gu Xingze's message. Shirshir, tomorrow night on the red carpet, I'll give you 2 gowns. Can you pick one? You'll look beautiful in it. His eyes darkened at once. He was infuriated by Gu Xingze's message. He was giving her a gown too? Could it be that he still had feelings for her? He seemed to care too much about her. It even exceeded the distance that should be maintained between colleagues. What about her? Would she agree to it? Would she wear the gown he gave her on the red carpet? Damn it! His woman was being coveted by so many people. He felt very unhappy. Chapter 1465. Yun Shirshir did not know what was wrong with him today. He suddenly appeared in Milan, suddenly appeared in the hotel she was staying at, and suddenly attacked her from behind. He wanted her, and he wanted her very fiercely. He carried her to the bed and did it again. For 2 whole hours, no matter how she begged for mercy, no matter how she refused, until she weakly collapsed on the bed and no longer had the strength to struggle. Tonight, he was like a youthful and ignorant 17 or 18-year-old youth who had just experienced his first taste of forbidden fruit and did not know how to control himself. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment and had endured for several long centuries. It was as if he could not hear her begging for mercy, could not feel her refusal. His mind was completely immersed in this charm and gentleness. At this moment, Yun Shirshir even had the heart to die. She weakly hugged the pillow. Her heart was sullen. This man was eyeing her covetously. He clearly wanted to cripple her. What was wrong with him today? This man on the bed had always been like an overlord, firmly grasping the initiative, but he rarely lost control like tonight. How she wanted him to be gentler, but tonight, it was as if he had been possessed by some kind of demon. What he wanted was so ruthless. After the passion subsided, he lay beside her and looked at her. However, she could not catch her breath for a long time. After the affair, the room was like a charming and gentle land of gentleness. She lay on the bed, the white blanket covering her body and covering her lower body. Her bare and fair back was exposed to the air just like that. Mu Yaja only took one look, and his eyes immediately deepened. This woman, if placed in ancient times, would definitely be a world-destroying enchantress who bewitched the heart of the monarch. Looking from afar, the beautiful lines of her back extended all the way. Such a sexy beauty was hard to describe with words in this world. In the past, she dressed up pure and refined, like a student who had just stepped out of school. She was young and tender, as if water could be squeezed out with a pinch. However, now that she had shed those pure and innocent clothes, lying beside him, she was even more like an enchantress, extremely charming and flirtatious. She lay lazily on the bed. Her long black hair draped over the pillow, spreading out like clouds. Her eyes were half open, and she was so tired that she didn't even have the strength to lift a finger. This time, he had tormented her quite a bit. Mu Yaja lowered his eyes to look at her, as if he had lost all his strength. Only then did the anger in his heart dissipate a little. Seeing that she was exhausted, he couldn't help but feel a little heartache and blame himself. At the same time, he was a little angry at himself for not being able to control himself and torturing her to such an overdraft. Thus he half propped himself up, slightly bowed his head, and quietly stared at her for a while before kissing her face. Her face was flushed with a seductive pink that spread from her ears all the way to her cheeks. The more he looked at her, the more his heart ached for her. His handsome face pressed down on hers, and his warm lips pressed against hers. It was as if he was comforting her, and he pecked her gently. Chapter 1466. She still couldn't stop panting, her weak moans ringing in his ears like a kitten's furry claws, scratching his heart coquettishly. Yaja gazed at her slightly angry eyes and gently touched her pink lips. Following that, gentle kisses landed on her forehead, between her brows, and then to her smooth chin. He continued to do so as if to comfort her. Her eyelashes drooped and she didn't look at him directly, as if she was angry. When she thought about how intense they were on the bed just now and how this man used those shameful actions to possess her, she felt like she couldn't wait to crawl up and dig a hole so that she could bury her boiling hot face that was about to drip blood. The aftertaste of the affair still hadn't faded and her mind was still blank and short-circuited for a long time. He half lay on top of her and gently kissed her to comfort her. After a long while, she finally regained some of her senses, but she was still a little angry. Unbelievable. She had never thought that she could have such a crazy side in bed. When she thought about it, she felt her face become even hotter. So, ignoring his comforting words, she turned her face away and buried her burning face deep into the pillow. Yaja still didn't let her off and kissed her ear charmingly. However, he seemed to be infatuated with her soft and fair earlobes. As his tongue gently traced the outline, his scorching hot breath took her in and played with her lips. The scorching hot breath by her ear and the intentional teasing made her feel a little unbearable. It was as if he was seducing her and wanted to confuse her. Her body was still in the aftertaste and was still very sensitive. How could she withstand his charm? Yun Shirshir groaned in dissatisfaction and avoided his intimacy. She tightly pursed her bright red lips and forced herself not to let out any erratic breaths. Yaja looked at her and suddenly laughed softly. Looking at her cute and delicate appearance, for a moment, he felt that this woman was so silly that she was adorable. So much so that the anger in his stomach disappeared in a puff of smoke. As long as this woman was by his side, he would completely lose his temper. When Yun Shirshir heard him snickering, she became even angrier. She couldn't help but raise her head to glare at him with her flushed face. "What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at?" She glared at him with her mesmerizing eyes, a hint of coquettishness in them. Her face was still flushed from the lingering effects of their lovemaking, and there was a hint of anger in her eyes. Seeing her like this, Yaja laughed again. He could tell that she was being shy. She was really shy. He was a little amused. This woman, it had been so long, but she was still shy. After sex, she would still show this shy and seductive look. Her skin seemed to be really thin. She also seemed to be very pure. Thinking back to what had happened just now, and how she had repeatedly begged for mercy while gasping for breath, Yaja increasingly felt that this little woman was truly a rare and precious beauty. When he smiled, her face burned even hotter. "Stop laughing." Yun Shirshir couldn't help but mutter and reach out to push his shoulder. However, the strength in her hands was so pitiful. After a few pushes, the man still didn't move an inch. For a moment, she was even more annoyed. She turned her face away again and ignored him. Chapter 1467. When Yaja saw this, he could not help but laugh. He reached out his hand and gently stroked her silky hair. He liked her jet black hair. As he stroked it, her silky hair flowed through the gaps of his fingers like spring water. It was also like high-quality brocade, glowing with an extremely healthy glow. In his heart, women should have long, silky hair. When he looked at her from afar, her silhouette should have long, silky hair that reached her waist. When she looked back with a smile, she should be extremely charming. This woman's appearance belonged to the classic style. Her charming eyes were like silk, and when she smiled, she was extremely flirtatious. With such beautiful hair, she was even more gorgeous and seductive. He could not help but laugh. With one hand, he lifted a lock of her silky hair and kissed her ear non-stop. After kissing for a while, he seemed to be engrossed in it, but he still did not know when to stop. When he pressed his lips against her ear, he smiled faintly. There was a hint of mischief in his words. "Little thing, are you shy?" Yun Shirshir's face became even hotter. She buried her face in the pillow and ignored his teasing. She ignored him. Not only did Yaja not find it boring, but he even enjoyed her shy and seductive manner even more. Reaching out, he covered her ample bosom in an instant. Yun Shirshir groaned. She could not help but shrink into the corner to avoid his provocative actions. However, what kind of man was Muyaja? How could he give her such a chance? The more shy she was, the more he wanted to force her to submit obediently. In front of a woman, men probably enjoyed the process of conquering her the most. Muyaja leaned over her body. He did not shy away at all. Yun Shirshir only had to look up. From the corner of her eye, she could easily see his lean and muscular body. Her face was boiling hot, but she could not help but think angrily in her heart. How could this man maintain such a good figure? Generally speaking, it should be very difficult for someone who sits in the office all day to maintain such a textbook figure, right? He also did not go to the gym often. How could he maintain such a lean and muscular figure? This was really infuriating. She thought about how she could only eat a certain amount of calories every day in order to appear beautiful in front of the camera at the fashion show. To be honest, she was really hungry. Especially after what had happened just now, her stamina had been completely drained. Now, she only felt that her stomach was almost sticking to her back from hunger. Yun Shirshir felt so wrong that she wanted to cry. What happened? Muyaja furrowed his brows slightly when he saw her aggrieved look. She cried because he bullied her? Yun Shirshir snorted and turned her head away, ignoring him. How could he understand her sadness? Muyaja held her small face and turned it back. What's wrong? His little face is so bitter, as if he has suffered a great grievance. Yun Shirshir pouted and glared at him as if she wanted to say something. Just as she was about to open her mouth and complain, a grumbling sound came from her stomach. Goo! Her stomach groaned miserably, as if it was complaining about her heartlessness. Yun Shirshir's expression froze instantly. She bit her lip in embarrassment and felt even more wronged. Muyaja looked stunned. It was obvious that he had very good hearing in this quiet room, so he had clearly heard that miserable groan. Chapter 1468. Muyaja looked at her green eyes and then looked at her lips that were constantly licking. Beside his ears, he could hear the moans coming from her stomach. Goo! This cry became even more uncontrollable. One cry after another, it sounded like it was wailing, yet it also sounded like it was bitterly begging for mercy. Coupled with Yun Shirshir's extremely gloomy and conflicted expression, Muyaja felt like laughing. Uft! He burst out laughing. Yun Shirshir glared at him. What are you laughing at? Nothing. I'm laughing at your stupidity. Muyaja poked her forehead lovingly. Stupid woman, you're hungry. Don't you know how to eat? I want to eat it too, she mumbled, feeling aggrieved. She looked like a resentful housewife who had been locked up in her room for too long. Muyaja was even more amused. He cupped her bitter little face and gently ravaged it. If you want to eat, why don't you eat? Qinzhou won't let me eat. Yun Shirshir was angry and wronged. In a fit of anger, she ruthlessly betrayed her revolutionary comrade, Qinzhou. When Muyaja heard this, he was furious. He won't let you eat? Why won't he let you eat? Because he's afraid that if I eat, I'll have a small belly and won't be able to wear the gown at tomorrow's banquet, Yun Shirshir said frankly. Qinzhou had put in a lot of effort for her. Reality proved that it was indeed very dangerous when she tried on the gown today. If her belly had been just a little bit bigger, she wouldn't have been able to wear the gown sent by the brand. However, the gown sent by the Gongjie seemed to be one size bigger. That was true. He had completely relied on the Gongjie's measurements. Moreover, under Qinzhou's training these few days, she had lost a lot of weight. When Muyaja heard this, he couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. What was this Qinzhou doing? No wonder he felt that when he was holding her waist, it was barely satisfactory. She had lost a lot of weight. He even suspected that if he used a little more strength, her waist would be broken by him. You're not allowed to starve yourself, do you hear me? Muyaja was a little angry as he ravaged her face. You won't eat just because they don't let you? Why are you so obedient in front of others? You'll do whatever you say? Yun Shirshir. Stupid woman. Muyaja paused, stretched out his big palm, and patted her asterisk. Get up, eat. With that said, he picked up the bathrobe that had been thrown to the ground. He stretched his arm slightly and pulled her into his embrace. With one arm around her and the other holding the bathrobe, he began to put it on her. He had never personally dressed anyone before, so his movements were inevitably a little clumsy. Yun Shirshir blushed immediately. Was this man, who was helping her put on her clothes, really that domineering Muyaja? Yun Shirshir pursed her lips. Somehow, she felt that in his eyes, he had always treated her like a child. She looked up and saw his uncanny workmanship and handsome side profile. For a moment, she was a little mesmerized. His side profile, no matter from which angle, was handsome and perfect. This man was simply God's favorite. She even found it hard to believe that this perfect man in front of her would be the man she would hold for the rest of her life. Her man. These 4 words were enough to make her heart flutter. She didn't dare to imagine. Chapter 1469. Putting aside this man's dominance and professionalism, he seemed to be flawless. However, even though he was a little overbearing, he could be so adorable at times. In her heart, an inexplicable sense of belonging arose spontaneously. Muyaja suddenly turned his eyes and glanced at her. Yun Shirshir felt guilty for a moment. Then she regained her composure. She struggled to get up and tried to snatch the bathrobe from his hands. "I'll do it myself. I'll wear it myself. You don't have to." Muyaja snorted coldly and slapped her hand away. Yun Shirshir groaned in pain. She rubbed the back of her hand that was slightly red from his slap and glared at him angrily. This man's strength was really strong. Just a light slap and her hand was already red. "I'll do it myself." She reached out her hand again unwillingly, but he didn't allow it and slapped her hand back again. "I'll help you wear it." It wasn't a question, but an order. He seemed to enjoy the process of serving her. Seeing that Yun Shirshir still wanted to say something, he frowned and didn't say anything more. However, he was imposing without being angry. Yun Shirshir gritted her teeth and couldn't help but glare at him again. However, this glare, which she was originally glaring at him angrily, seemed a little too flirtatious in his eyes. Hence, he suddenly lowered his head and bit her lips fiercely. In the deep kiss, there was a hint of fierceness, as if he couldn't wait to swallow her alive. Under the deterrence of his gaze, no matter how wronged Yun Shirshir felt, she could only obey obediently. He draped the bathrobe over her body. While serving her, he didn't forget to take the opportunity to take advantage of her. Yun Shirshir was angry but didn't dare to say anything. She allowed him to do whatever he wanted. Moreover, she didn't have the strength to resist him now. After he put on the bathrobe for her, he slapped her butt again. "What do you want to eat?" Yun Shirshir's thoughts had drifted far away. When she heard him ask, she regained her train of thought. She pondered for a moment and said, "I want to eat everything. Is that okay?" Muyaja. Glutton. Muyaja walked into the living room and ordered an exquisite set meal. Soon, the waiter rang the doorbell and presented the set meals one after another. When Yun Shirshir walked out of the bedroom, she saw that in the dining room, there were 2 exquisite candlesticks on the dining table. Under the warm candlelight, there were 10 exquisite dishes on the table. She only took one look and her stomach growled again. She felt even hungrier. Creamy mushroom spaghetti, white truffle puffs, French-baked snails, filet mignon. Good heavens! Yun Shirshir could only feel the saliva in her mouth increasing. She swallowed hard and managed to maintain her reserved posture with great difficulty, resisting the urge to pounce over. Muyaja leaned against her back and hugged her shoulders. He teased, "What's wrong? So impatient. Stupid woman, you have to be more reserved and ladylike." "Yes." Yun Shirshir sat at the dining table. Muyaja also sat down. Both of them looked at each other. Her eyes suddenly curved into crescents as she smiled. "This is my first time enjoying a candlelight dinner." Muyaja raised his eyebrows and laughed. "This is not considered dinner anymore. Candlelight supper. Try it." Muyaja rested his chin on his hand lazily and looked at her. "This is authentic Italian cuisine. The taste was not as good as in China. It was authentic." Chapter 1470. The moment Muyaja finished his sentence, she raised her fork and knife, and a gust of wind swept away the clouds. Muyaja propped his chin on his hand, looking dumbstruck. His thin lips parted slightly in surprise, but he forgot to close them. Yun Shirshir did not seem to notice the stunned expression on his face at this moment. Right now, she only cared about filling her stomach. She raised her fork and knife, ate a mouthful of steak, and took a mouthful of pasta. Before she could sigh in satisfaction, she swallowed a mouthful of salad. She was so hungry that she did not care about tasting the food carefully. She only wanted to fill her stomach and did not care about anything else. Muyaja was dumbstruck. His eyebrows twitched hard, and a row of black lines appeared on his face. Under his burning gaze, Yun Shirshir looked up and saw Muyaja's stiff expression at this moment. For a moment, she was stunned. She furrowed her eyebrows and asked in a muffled voice, "What's wrong?" Muyaja suddenly retracted his gaze and pondered for a moment. "Forgive me for being blunt. Stupid woman, the way you eat reminds me of a word." "What is it?" Yun Shirshir's mouth was full. Her mouth was full of food, so it was inevitable that she could not speak clearly. Muyaja sized her up again. Then he spat out a word mercilessly. "Refugee." Yun Shirshir's face fell instantly. "Hey, you're not allowed to say that about me?" Muyaja knocked on the table and commented sincerely, "This is the truth." Yun Shirshir protested innocently. "I'm really hungry. So, I can't care about anything else." Muyaja was speechless for a moment. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he could not hide his helpless smile. "You should at least pay attention to your table manners. Don't you want your image as an idol?" Yun Shirshir pouted and asked him instead, "Why do I need to pay attention to my image in front of you?" Anyway, I don't have to be secretive in front of you, right?" She pouted coquettishly. While he was still in a daze, she lowered her head again and left. Muyaja stared blankly for a long time, unable to recover from her words for a long time. "In front of you, do I still need to worry about hiding anything?" Muyaja suddenly smiled. This woman sometimes was really annoying, but most of the time, she was so cute. How adorable. These words were extremely pleasing to the ears. He liked it when she acted coquettishly in front of him without hiding anything. It was a complete and unreserved look. This was the real her. Unlike in front of the camera, she always maintained a noble demeanor and was as elegant and perfect as a princess. In front of him, she was so straightforward. He loved this side of her. His gaze landed on her body. In this short period of time, she had swallowed another mouthful of steak. The oil stains stained her tender red lips. Watching her eat with such relish, just by looking at it, he felt like he had tasted the marrow and wanted to taste it. On her body, a feast for the eyes was vividly displayed. Even for someone like him, he couldn't help but be tempted by her. As a result, watching her eat, he also felt a little hungry. After Yun Shirshir finished eating, all the delicious food on the table was in her stomach. Muyaja was so shocked that he could not close his mouth. She could eat so much? He did not order a lot of food, but according to her usual appetite, she probably could not finish it all. It looked like this little thing was really hungry. Chapter 1471. What a gluttonous little kitten. At night, Yun Shirshir was sleeping soundly as she laid her head on his arm. However, he was still in high spirits. His large palm gently stroked her swollen belly and gently flicked it from time to time. It seemed to be bouncy. Not bad. It felt good to the touch. It was a wonderful thing in life to eat and drink to one's heart's content. Of course, the end result of eating and drinking to one's heart's content was that when Yun Shirshir was brought to the Louis Vuitton show by Qin Zhou the next day, she realized that the zipper was stuck at her waist when she tried on the gown. The stylist was still a little suspicious. When she was doing her makeup yesterday, she had put on the ink-style gown for Yun Shirshir. That gown was even tighter at the waist than this one. It was even slightly too big for her. How could it be that the zipper was stuck at her waist after just one night? It didn't make sense. Shirshir's waist was clearly very thin. She tried again and tried to pull it up forcefully. However, she couldn't pull it up no matter what. At this point, the stylist didn't dare to use force anymore because the gown was extremely expensive to make. If she used too much force and something went wrong, the gown would be damaged. A gown that cost as much as 7 figures wasn't something they could afford. Yun Shirshir stood in front of the mirror and heard the stylist behind her say weakly, I can't pull it up." "You can't pull it up?" Yun Shirshir frowned. However, when she realized that the zipper of the gown was stuck at her waist, she felt a little guilty. Qin Zhou, who was standing outside the fitting room, heard it and asked nervously, "What's going on? What's stuck?" Yun Shirshir looked even more embarrassed. Was it because she ate too much at dinner last night? It couldn't be, right? It had been 10 hours since she had dinner. No matter how bad it was, she should have digested everything in one night, right? Why was the gown stuck at her waist? Qin Zhou's angry voice came from outside the fitting room. Sure. He only called out her name, but the suppressed gunpowder in his voice could not be concealed at all. Yun Shusher swallowed nervously and laughed dryly. Ha. President Qin. If you have something to say, please. I remember that with your size, this gown will definitely fit you. Yun Shusher felt so guilty that she didn't say anything. What happened? Yun Shusher looked up at the sky, so nervous that she broke out in cold sweat. Qin Zhou leaned against the door and his sinister voice drifted into her ears. Don't tell me. You ate something last night? At this moment, Qin Zhou's expression was as serious as a judge of the Azura Palace. Yun Shusher was so scared that she broke out in a cold sweat. She hesitated for a long time before she mumbled, I ate a little. You ate a little? Qin Zhou obviously doubted her words. Yun Shusher corrected her again. A little more than a little. How much did he eat? Qin Zhou was a little angry and questioned her sternly. Yun Shusher was so scared that she confessed everything. I ate steak, salad, pasta, white truffle puffs. Qin Zhou's expression was stiff and cold. After Yun Shusher finished speaking in one breath, she felt that the huge studio fell into a dead silence. Why didn't you eat more? Why don't you just stuff yourself to death? Yun Shusher pursed her lips and pretended to be dead. Chapter 1472. Now you're pretending to be mute? Your mouth must have been wide open when you were eating, right? Yun Shusher. Damn, this Qin Zhou was really vicious with his words. Yun Shusher was embarrassed for a moment before she said helplessly, Master Qin Zhou, I was really too hungry. Too hungry? Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows and said in an unfriendly tone. Yes, so I couldn't hold it in. Qin Zhou questioned again. Couldn't hold it in? Because I haven't eaten for a few days. So you ate and drank so much the night before the red carpet that you burst your stomach, Qin Zhou mocked mercilessly. Yun Shusher said in an aggrieved tone. I know I was wrong. I'm sorry, Mwax. Mwax your head. Qin Zhou exploded. What's the use of apologizing to me? You're about to go to the show. Originally, you should be in front of Louis Vuitton's executives in 2 hours, showing off your noble and elegant temperament to your heart's content. But now you're in the fitting room, stuck in the zipper of your gown. Haha. You don't know how to control yourself at all. I clearly told you to bear with it for the next 2 days, but you ended up eating like this. If you appear in front of Louis Vuitton's executives with a bulging stomach, what would they think? Yun Shusher. Qin Zhou snorted. Louis Vuitton is looking for brand ambassadors. They have to be beautiful and have a great figure. But what about you? Do you think this is a pregnant woman's red carpet show? Yun Shusher said in a sobbing tone. It's not that exaggerated. The stylist couldn't take it anymore. She walked out of the fitting room and comforted Qin Zhou. CEO Qin, it's useless to be angry at Shusher now. Why don't we think of a way? I brought a corset. Why don't we put a corset on Shusher? She might be able to wear the gown then. There were pros and cons to a corset. The pros were that with a corset, one could tighten the waist and wear the gown. The cons were that a corset was harmful to the body. Moreover, with a corset added to the gown, one would inevitably look a little bloated. Therefore, the corset had to be tighter than normal. This person was going to suffer a little. Yun Shusher's face fell when she heard that she had to wear a girdle. Qin Zhou crossed his arms. His expression was unfriendly, but he didn't say a word. The stylist carefully probed. What do you mean? What else can we do? Qin Zhou said unhappily. What time is it now? There's not much time left. Hurry up and bring the girdle over. Yes. The stylist took the girdle and put it on for Yun Shusher. After a long time, the zipper was finally pulled up. However, it was Yun Shusher's first time wearing a corset. She couldn't get used to it for a while. When she walked out of the fitting room, her face was red. Obviously, she was uncomfortable because of the tight fit. Her expression was a little unnatural. Qin Zhou walked in front of her, snorted coldly and ordered, Look up. Yun Shusher subconsciously looked up. Stick out your chest. Smile. Yun Shirshir curved the corners of her lips. Qin Zhou crossed his arms and looked elegant and cool. He looked her up and down and then nodded with slight satisfaction. However, he still couldn't help but poke her head. You greedy little cat, who asked you to steal food? Yun Shirshir looked aggrieved. See, you've suffered. Do you dare to do it again next time? Yun Shirshir shook her head and looked bitter. Qin Zhou looked at her pitiful look and couldn't get angry no matter what. All right. I'll let you off today. Chapter 1473. She spent the entire afternoon checking out the fashion show, accepting media interviews, taking street shots, and shooting a magazine shoot. Her schedule was packed to the brim. Yun Shirshir felt like she was going to fly like a hydrogen balloon. When they arrived in Milan, Yun Shirshir had to admit that Qin Zhou had a lot of resources in his hands. In fact, compared to Lin Ji, as a newcomer, she did not have Lin Ji's fame. Even so, Qin Zhou still managed to get her a Louis Vuitton endorsement deal and even arranged a role for her in a Hollywood blockbuster. This might be a common occurrence for A-listers. But for a newcomer like her, it was really unbelievable. With such a low exposure rate, it was indeed shocking that she was able to obtain such two international resources. On the other hand, although Lin Ji was more famous than her in the country, she could only sit on the cold bench overseas. Lin Ji's manager could not compare to Qin Zhou's resources, so the pitiful Lin Ji could only grit her teeth and watch Yun Shirshir bask in limitless glory. She changed into one gown after another, and the interviews came one after another without any rest. Lin Ji was so angry that her teeth were itching. How could she not be angry? She was so jealous that her eyes were about to turn red. When she arrived at the Milan fashion show, she had imagined that everything would be perfect. She would change into a beautiful gown and walk under the flashing spotlights. She would flash her elegance to her heart's content and leave her most beautiful smile on the camera. But the reality was cruel. She could only watch as Yun Shirshir was constantly scrambled by the media. She stood among the crowd, waving and smiling like a high and mighty goddess, noble and elegant. Her every frown and smile attracted the media and spotlights like a flock of ducks. Compared to home, her surroundings were too cold and cheerless. The only media outlet that had interviewed her was one that she had a good relationship with in the country. What made her even angrier was that within a few minutes of the interview, as soon as they saw Yun Shirshir, they walked away with their cameras, leaving her alone on the cold bench. She wished she could turn her gaze into a pair of sharp daggers and mercilessly stab holes into Yun Shirshir's irksome body. Humph. Shameless B***TCH. It's been a whole day, and she's like a butterfly, never ending. Lin Ji's assistant sneered softly. Obviously, she didn't like Yun Shirshir either. I'm really suspecting that the media, which has been swarming around her like flies, are paid by Yun Shirshir at a high price. That's not the case. The foreign media can't compare to the domestic media. If these media outlets were all hired by her, then it shows that Yun Shirshir's background is not ordinary. Lin Ji paused and narrowed her eyes. There are some things that you can't say. Be careful with your words and actions. She sounded like she was reprimanding her. Her voice was a little too loud when she was criticizing Yun Shirshir just now. The assistant seemed to have realized that he had raised his voice a little. He lowered his voice and said, "If you didn't hire him at a high price, how else can you explain that? She just debuted, and her only movie hasn't been released yet. How could she be so famous?" Lin Ji snorted. Why don't you take a look at who her manager is? Chapter 1474. At the mention of Qin Zhou, she knew that this manager's resources were not to be underestimated. Hence, she had nothing to say. On the night of Louis Vuitton's special event, there would be a Milan fashion show banquet. The venue for the banquet would be the famous Milan Palace. As the former seat of government in Milan, the Milan Palace had not only carried the glory of history for many centuries, but it had also become an important cultural center, creating new miracles. The guests attending the banquet were all top celebrities from various industries. They were all star-studded and influential. World-class supermodels, international fashion moguls, Italian designers, the chairman of Milan Fashion Week, and top designers were all present. The lineup for the banquet was dazzling. On the list of invited guests, the top celebrities in the country were also on the list. Lin Ji had also tried her best to get an entry ticket. She was so excited that she was about to cry. It was a great honor for an artist to be invited to the Milan Palace for a fashion banquet. It was like stepping into the Hall of Fame of the fashion industry, shining with stars. As an artist collaborating with Louis Vuitton, Lin Ji also had to go to the styling room to get her hair done. Hence, it was inevitable that she would bump into Yun Shirshir again. Qin Zhou turned on his mocking mode the moment he saw Lin Ji. "Hey, who is this? What's her name again? I can't remember." "Shirshir. Is she also on the list of invitees for this banquet?" Yun Shirshir pretended to be at a loss. "I don't remember." "Look at my memory. How could I forget?" This Milan fashion banquet is divided into invited guests and media collaborators. Invited guests are the VIPs invited by the organizers. Media collaborators, on the other hand, didn't receive an invitation but used the media's qualification to get in. Qin Zhou paused. Then he sneered and said coldly, "I was wondering why I didn't see her name on the list of invited guests." So, she used the media's name to get in. This sentence, however, was full of killing power. Lin Ji's face was extremely ugly, but she still pretended to be elegant and argued, "President Qin, you must be mistaken. This time, I'm attending the banquet as the spokesperson for Louis Vuitton's new spring collection. What you said is nonsense." However, Qin Zhou smiled coldly and said disdainfully, "Aya, you're so smug just because you're the spokesperson for the new spring collection. You're really something." Lin Ji was completely speechless. She wanted to say something but stopped. However, in front of Qin Zhou, she felt that no matter how much she refuted, she had no power. Lin Ji stomped her feet angrily and went to change into her gown. She didn't want to embarrass herself in front of Qin Zhou. Yun Shirshir secretly sighed in her heart. She had seen a lot of things, but when it came to poisonous tongues, Qin Zhou was still a level higher. "Go and change your clothes," Qin Zhou exhorted her. Yun Shirshir went into the changing room with the assistant who was holding the gown. Qin Zhou raised his hand to check the time. He walked to the balcony and made a call to Gu Xingze to arrange a meeting. Lin Ji changed into her gown and came out. She saw that Qin Zhou wasn't around. When she saw Yun Shirshir in the changing room, her eyes darted around and she suddenly thought of a wicked move. Thus, she waved her hand and called her assistant over. Then, she whispered a few words in her ear. "Remember, take advantage of Qin Zhou's absence and quickly do it." Chapter 1475. Lin Ji sneered and glanced in the direction of Yun Shirshir's dressing room with evil intentions. Then, she went into the dressing room to get her hair done. "Humph. Yun Shirshir, aren't you smug? Just wait and see. Let's see how lawless you can be when Qin Zhou isn't around." Lin Ji's assistant was called Xiao Ling. She had been following Lin Ji since her debut. She was very efficient in her work and shared a common enemy with Lin Ji. Moreover, she was very vicious. She remembered that when Lin Ji was filming a period drama, a second female lead had stolen her role. Under Lin Ji's instructions, the assistant had dragged the second female lead to a hotel and beaten her up. The assistant had stripped her of all her clothes and taken many unsightly photos. The assistant had then used the photos to blackmail the second female lead and demanded that she respect Lin Ji in everything she did. This second female lead had just graduated from an art school. She had no power or background. Because she was a professional, her acting skills were not bad. Although it was a supporting role, it was not easy to get this role. When she acted, she was reserved and professional. Compared to other actors, she was a more innocent little girl. After being blackmailed with so many unsightly photos, the second female lead was scared witless. Therefore, when she was on the set, she did as Lin Ji wished. Not only was she obedient, but she also wanted to worship Lin Ji like a living Buddha. This was not a big deal. After being scolded by the director, Lin Ji was in a bad mood and often vented her anger on the second female lead. The way she vented her anger was disgusting. Let's not talk about the heartless ones for now. Once, Lin Ji came back from the set. Because she was angry, she took off her shoes and asked the second female lead to lick her feet clean. How overboard was this? Lin Ji actually dared to ask for it. The second female lead could not accept it and was very unwilling. Lin Ji called Xiao Ling over, and when Xiao Ling arrived, she beat her up again. Only then did the second female lead obediently give in. Moreover, she cared a lot about her innocence, so she could only obey humbly. Not only did she lick Lin Ji's feet clean, she was even forced to drink a few mouthfuls of the water used to wash her feet. The entire process was recorded by Xiao Ling. The next day, the second female lead went to the set. When the director saw the bruises on her arms and shoulders, he thought that the bruises were caused by something dirty. Hence, he fired her from the set on the grounds that she was having an affair with a man on set. Actually, this second female lead was a pity. She was pretty, capable, and kind-hearted. If it weren't for Lin Ji, she might have shot to fame with this role. However, after the drama aired, she left the entertainment industry and went into hiding. After leaving the entertainment industry, she married a rich businessman with her good looks. However, Lin Ji found out about this. Therefore, she sent the unsightly photos that the girl had been forced to take to the rich businessman's mailbox. She also spread a rumor that the girl had been involved in a relationship with a man and a woman in the crew. She was called out by the director and kicked out of the crew. When the rich businessman found out about it, he was so angry that he divorced her after half a year of marriage. Then, Lin Ji used some tricks to seduce this rich businessman. She was booked by him for a period of time and obtained some resources from him. Through this rich businessman, she met a famous director and used this famous director's TV series to become famous. Chapter 1476. On the surface, she looked bright and innocent. Only then did Mu Shi fall in love with her. What she did not know, however, was that she was a very sinister person in private. In fact, Lin Ji was very petty. Once she bore a grudge against someone, she would not let the matter rest until her reputation was ruined. Earlier, she had whispered to her assistant to sneak to Yun Shishir's changing room with her phone and secretly take a few photos of Yun Shishir changing into her gown. This was not the first time she had done such a despicable thing. Xiaoling smiled knowingly. Taking advantage of Qin Zhou's absence, she sneaked to Yun Shishir's changing room and stood on a stool. With the help of the selfie stick, she stretched her hand in the direction of Yun Shishir's changing room. The camera was muted, so Yun Shishir did not notice even after a dozen photos were taken. She was struggling with her gown. Louis Vuitton's gowns were more cumbersome to wear, so she was focused on putting on nipple pads. The stylist wanted her to squeeze as much cleavage as possible. The more obvious it was, the better. Yun Shishir, on the other hand, was frowning and did not want to be too revealing. Xiaoling succeeded just like that. Holding the photos in her hands, she was secretly delighted for a while. She then opened the door and was about to go out to ask for a reward from Lin Ji. When she opened the door just now, she only felt a tall figure standing at the door, as if blocking all the light. His tall and big body stood tall like a dark cloud. Xiaoling was startled and her heart trembled. She raised her head and saw a man as handsome as a god. Xiaoling's heart tightened. It was not because of this man's handsome looks that angered both men and gods, nor was it because of his powerful aura that made one's heart tremble. It was because at this moment, this man's eyes were as sharp as ice, piercing her body and making her tremble. Mu Yaja blocked the door, his handsome face gloomy. He had just arrived at the studio and heard that Yun Shishir was in the changing room, so he wanted to take a look. As soon as she arrived, she saw a selfie stick sticking out from the ceiling of Yun Shishir's changing room. She could vaguely see that the camera had been turned on and had secretly taken a few pictures. His eyes were extremely sharp, and he immediately saw that the phone screen had captured Yun Shishir's half-naked body. His anger immediately surged. Who was it? How dare he secretly take photos of her changing clothes? Xiaoling was shocked by his expression, but she did not know the identity of the man in front of her. She asked stupidly, "Who are you? Don't you know it's scary to suddenly appear at the door?" Mu Yaja was silent, but his eyes fell on her phone. Xiaoling did not notice his anger at all. She looked around and asked suspiciously, "Who are you? Don't you know that this is the VIP lounge? Unauthorized personnel are not allowed in. What were you doing just now?" Mu Yaja questioned. When Xiaoling heard this, she was stunned and felt guilty. She instinctively held her phone tightly behind her back and asked innocently, "What does it have to do with you?" However, she was panicking inside. Could it be that this man had come in just now? What a bad time. Could it be that he had seen her every move? Xiaoling cursed silently and said fiercely. Then, she wanted to retreat. "I'm not going to talk nonsense with you. I have something to do." "Stop right there." Mu Yaja abruptly grabbed her arm and pulled her back without a word. Chapter 1477. In the changing room, Yun Shishir was alarmed by the argument outside the door. She put on her gown and hurried out. However, she was stunned when she saw the confrontation at the door. You. Why are you here? Yun Shirshir was confused when she saw Mu Yaja. This was Louis Vuitton's VIP room for women. How could he barge in so openly? She took a closer look at the woman in Mu Yaja's hand and found her rather familiar. Yun Shirshir thought about it seriously. Wasn't this Lin Ji's assistant? Why was she here? Just as Yun Shirshir was wondering, Xiao Ling started to struggle fiercely. You. Let go of me. What are you doing? Although this man was quite handsome, but why was he grabbing her hand for no reason and not letting go? Xiao Ling complained in her heart. Mainly, she felt very guilty and wanted to leave this place quickly. Hand over your phone. Mu Yaja grabbed one of her hands and glared at her with a gloomy expression. His eyes were filled with rage. He never had the habit of being rough with women, but that didn't mean that he would tolerate it to the end. Xiao Ling was so flustered that she broke out in cold sweat. Qin Zhou had just finished his call when he heard the argument coming from the VIP changing room. He carefully knocked on the door and heard a man's voice. He didn't know what was going on, but the voice of the opposite sex alerted him. He immediately pushed the door open and entered. However, when he saw the confrontation in front of him and saw that the woman Mu Yaja was holding was Lin Ji's assistant, his expression turned ugly. This is Shirshir's changing room. Why did you sneak in? Xiao Ling pouted innocently. I went in the wrong way. I didn't do it on purpose. Why are you so agitated? Mu Yaja sneered at her matter-of-factly manner. You secretly took photos of her, he said sternly. Yun Shirshir didn't react for a moment when she heard that. However, when she calmed down and saw the phone in Xiao Ling's hand, she thought of the scene in the changing room and felt a chill in her heart. She secretly took photos of her? Thinking of this, Yun Shirshir was furious. She took a few steps closer to her and asked sternly, Did you secretly take a picture of me changing my clothes? When Qin Zhou heard this, he immediately understood. His gaze was no longer as gentle as before. Instead it became sharp. You secretly took photos of Shirshir changing clothes? No. Xiao Ling tried her best to defend herself. Are you guys kidding me? I was just holding my phone, and all of you are actually accusing me of taking photos secretly? I saw it. With only 4 words from Mu Yaja, Yun Shirshir did not suspect anything. What kind of person was Mu Yaja? Why would he wish for a nobody for no reason? Hence, she walked forward and snatched the phone while Xiao Ling was distracted. My phone. Give it back to me. Xiao Ling was extremely nervous. Yun Shirshir pursed her lips coldly. Without looking at her, she picked up Xiao Ling's phone and opened the screen. The phone was very new. It looked like it was bought a few days ago. It was the latest model of the iPhone 7 Plus. She didn't even have time to set a password. Hence, she opened the photo album and quickly found solid evidence in the album. Chapter 1478. Yun Shirshir's face turned redder and redder. She scrolled through the photos and deleted them one by one. When she was done, she realized that more than 20 photos had been secretly taken. She flew into a rage out of humiliation. Gripping her phone tightly, she glared at him and said angrily, You secretly took photos of me changing clothes. How can you be so shameless? Who told you to do this? Mu Yaja's gaze turned even colder when he heard that. He tightened his grip even more. Xiao Ling sucked in a breath of cold air from the pain. She felt as if her wrist was about to be broken by this man. Oh my God! What is this man doing? Why is his strength so terrifying? Qin Zhou sneered, his eyes filled with mockery. Who else could it be? It must be her master who ordered her to do this. The master he was referring to was none other than Lin Ji. Xiao Ling gulped nervously. Before she could explain herself, Yun Shirshir threw her brand-new phone to the ground in a fit of anger. The brand-new iPhone 7 Plus broke into pieces from the violent and intimate contact with the ground. The screen shattered into pieces. Xiao Ling cried out in pain. Her heart ached for her newly bought phone. This was a new phone she had just bought. How could it be broken just like that? Xiao Ling was furious, but she didn't dare to say anything. At that moment, Lin Ji had just finished doing her hair. Hearing the commotion in the changing room, she hurried over. She was shocked to see such a huge commotion when she opened the door just now. Instinctively, she realized that her assistant had messed up the job. Lin Ji's throat moved. She glared at Xiao Ling from the corner of her eye, annoyed at her incompetence. Xiao Ling received her cold glare and shrunk her neck in fear. She pursed her lips. Now that she had been caught red-handed, she wanted to cry but had no tears. Lin Ji was only thinking about how to clean up the mess. Thus, she quickly asked, "What's the situation?" Mu Yaja turned around and met her eyes. He glanced at her condescendingly but didn't say a word. In his eyes, this Lin Ji didn't have the right to make him speak. When Lin Ji saw him, she was so scared that her legs went soft. When she entered the room just now, her attention was all focused on Yun Shishir and Xiao Ling. In her panic, she didn't notice Mu Yaja's existence at all. However, when he saw that it was him, he was so scared that he couldn't stand still. She had seen him once. This man was the Supreme Emperor of Huanyu. Mu Yaja was the CEO of Dishing Financial Group, the highest executive. Huanyu Entertainment was just one of his many businesses. It was said that he was a rather swift and decisive person. Why was he here? Lin Ji was a little confused. What's the situation? Don't you feel guilty asking this question? Qin Zhou snorted coldly. He had been in the industry for many years and was quite experienced. How could he not see that Xiao Ling had secretly taken nude photos of Shishir under Lin Ji's instructions? His mockery made Lin Ji's face even more embarrassed. However, who was she? Her acting skills were superb. When she pretended to be innocent, it was very convincing. Anger and shock appeared on her face. At the same time, she looked at Xiao Ling with a pained expression and said in disappointment, "Xiao Ling, what did you do?" You secretly took nude photos of Yun Shishir." Lin Ji interrogated sternly. When she said this, it was as if she wanted to push all the blame onto Xiao Ling. Chapter 1479. She thought that Lin Ji would help her exonerate herself, but she didn't expect her to change the topic and pour all the dirty water on her. For a moment, Xiao Ling felt wronged and disappointed. She wanted to say something but stopped herself. "Tell me, did you do it? Did you do it?" Lin Ji glared at her. Her hoarse voice was filled with disappointment and pain. Lin Ji's acting skills were good to begin with, especially at a time like this. It was vividly displayed. Xiao Ling widened her eyes helplessly, her mouth slightly agape. She was caught off guard by Lin Ji's sudden change in attitude. Surrounded by so many people, Lin Ji was the only one on her side. Even though she was the only one on her side, she was still questioning her sternly. She was so scared that her legs almost turned to jelly. What was she doing? What was Lin Ji trying to do? Why was she questioning her so fiercely? Wasn't she the one who ordered her to do all this? Now, not only did she not help to exonerate herself, but she even poured all the dirty water on her. She had to bear such a big black pot. How wronged was she? However, she couldn't blame Lin Ji for not helping her at all. She was already caught red-handed. How could she still argue? Even if Lin Ji wanted to exonerate her, she would only implicate herself. Lin Ji was a person who knew how to sail according to the wind. She looked around and immediately jumped out to clear her name once she saw that the situation was not right. One couldn't help but admire Lin Ji's brilliance. Qin Zhou narrowed his eyes dangerously. He had many doubts about Lin Ji's attitude in his heart. He didn't even need to think about it. Xiao Ling had been ordered. If not for Lin Ji's order, how could she have thought of using such a method to secretly take photos of Shishir? Lin Ji winked at Xiao Ling from an angle where no one could see, wanting her to cooperate with her act. However, Xiao Ling was in a state of panic at this moment. How could she understand her look? She shrunk her shoulders in fear. She looked at Qin Zhou's gloomy face for a while, and then looked at Mu Yaja, who was as awe-inspiring as a god. She was terrified to the extreme, and her lips trembled as she explained, I didn't. I really didn't," Yun Shishir said in disgust. "I've already seen it. Why are you still trying to defend yourself? Is there any use?" Qin Zhou's voice became even harsher. "Why did you do that? Why did you think of stealing Shishir's photos? Are you under someone's orders?" Xiao Ling was so shocked that her shoulders trembled. She subconsciously glanced at Lin Ji with a helpless and hesitant gaze. Lin Ji was furious. This Xiao Ling was so stupid. Why didn't he know how to cooperate with her? Thus, she said angrily, "I didn't expect you to be so vicious. Why are you still quibbling?" Why did you secretly take photos of her? Gigi, you. Xiaoling was aggrieved and scared. She subconsciously wanted to rat Lin Ji out. Lin Ji saw that the situation wasn't right. She rushed in front of Xiaoling and gave her 2 tight slaps. I've really misjudged you. I didn't expect you to use such despicable methods. Xiaoling was slapped hard. She only felt a burning pain on her face. Her face was slapped to one side. She subconsciously covered her face and looked at Lin Ji in shock. She didn't expect her to be such a person. Chapter 1480. Sob, sob, sob. She was so aggrieved that she started crying. Lin Ji frowned angrily. You're still crying. How dare you cry? Then she carried Xiaoling to Yun Shirshir and pushed her. Why are you crying? Apologize to Shirshir. Sob, sob, sob. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Xiaoling had no choice but to apologize while crying. Yun Shirshir's face was cold as she looked at the master-servant pair in front of her expressionlessly. Everyone present knew that Xiaoling was being used by Lin Ji. However, Lin Ji was one step ahead and put on a good show. Xiaoling was also willing to take the blame, so no one could say anything. Seeing that Yun Shirshir's face was still cold, Lin Ji slapped Xiaoling again. Do you think you can just apologize like that? You're not sincere at all. Kneel down and apologize. You have to make her forgive you. Although Xiaoling was unwilling, she had no choice but to kowtow under Lin Ji's pressure. Bang, bang, bang. Every time he kowtowed, he would apologize. His voice was loud and clear. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I'm sorry, I really know my mistake. Lin Ji stood together with her arms crossed like a vicious queen, looking at Xiaoling kowtowing with satisfaction. Yun Shirshir felt disgusted no matter how she looked at her. She was the one who instigated it, but she pushed all the blame to others. If it were her, she would not do such a thing. She thought about how Lin Ji had sent someone to secretly take photos of her changing clothes. Fortunately, she did not succeed. Just imagining the consequences of letting Lin Ji have her way was enough to make one shudder. Yun Shirshir was also secretly angry at herself for being careless. She did not notice that someone had secretly taken photos of her. There was no lack of such ruthless people in the entertainment industry, who used such vicious methods to harm others. All right, don't be an eyesore in front of me. I won't forgive you. Yun Shirshir said. Lin Ji's expression changed and she immediately explained, Shirshir, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by won't forgive you? Don't you know very well what I mean by that? Yun Shirshir snorted coldly. Since ancient times, only villains can be offended. Today, I'll give you a way out, but that doesn't mean that I'm a pushover. If something like this happens again, I'll expose your despicable methods to the media. You, Lin Ji's eyes turned sharp, but when she caught a glimpse of Mu Yaja and Qin Zhou's cold faces, she could only suppress the anger in her heart. There are some things that I have to make clear. I really didn't instruct Xiaoling to do this. Yun Shirshir, you don't have to make oblique accusations. You don't have any evidence to back up your suspicions. I'm not afraid of crooked shadows. You can say whatever you want, but I have a clear conscience. With that, she turned around and kicked Xiaoling. Why are you still kneeling? Let's go. Xiaoling stood up with tears in her eyes. She glared hatefully at Yun Shirshir and left with Lin Ji. Yun Shirshir was speechless. She had seen thick-skinned people, but she had never seen such a thick-skinned person. What a weirdo. Mu Yaja walked to Yun Shirshir and sized her up. He frowned and scolded. How could you be so careless? You let someone take advantage of you. Yun Shirshir stuck out her tongue. I didn't notice. Bang! Mu Yaja flicked her forehead. Chapter 1481. If he hadn't noticed it in time, who knew what would have happened next? Was this stupid woman so stupid? Qin Zhou suddenly asked. Chairman Mu, what a coincidence. You're in Milan too? Yes. Mu Yaja nodded. His meaningful gaze fell on Yun Shirshir. Every word he said was extremely ambiguous. I'm in Milan to handle some business. Business? Yun Shirshir almost choked on her saliva. She couldn't be the official business that he was talking about, right? Why did such a plain sentence sound so ambiguous when it came out of his mouth? What a terrible man. Yun Shirshir pouted in her heart. Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows. Chairman Mu, what brings you here today? She'll be my female companion on the red carpet tonight. Qin Zhou was stunned when he heard this. For a moment, his expression was complicated. Previously, Gu Xingze had already told him that Yun Shishir would be his female companion on the red carpet. Firstly, it could solidify the hype of the couple and promote the upcoming movie. He had already made arrangements with the media. Secondly, it could solidify the remaining hype of the first episode of The Lover's Diary, with Yun Shishir and Xingze. Who knew that Mu Yaja would appear out of nowhere? Mu Yaja, however, was unaware of what the manager was thinking. Are you going to wear this tonight? As soon as he finished speaking, he looked down and was suddenly attracted by the gown she was wearing. She had purposely chosen the gown Gu Xingze had sent over today. This gown wasn't considered conservative. It was pulled low at the chest and the stylist had done his best to squeeze a little cleavage. It was very eye-catching and eye-catching. It was too revealing. The gown was a tube top and had a low-cut design. Her voluptuous breasts were almost on the verge of popping out. Yun Shishir's body was the type that was skinny but not voluptuous. When Yun Shishir was a teenager, her breasts weren't so voluptuous. Perhaps it was because she had been breastfeeding, but her breasts were more developed. Coupled with the nipple pads, it was simply impossible for men to take their eyes off her. It was too exposed. It made people involuntarily want to press her down on the bed and ruthlessly humiliate her. Mu Yaja commented in his heart. Change out of this. He suddenly ordered. Qin Zhou was a little confused. Why? Mu Yaja glanced at him coldly. Don't you think it's too revealing? Qin Zhou was at a loss for words. All right, it was indeed a little exposed. But for a Fashion Week banquet, this was already considered a conservative approach. Some Hollywood actresses even appeared in see-through outfits. Shishir was already being very conservative. Alas, even if he were given 10 guts, he would not dare to say this in front of the man. Go in exchange for the one I sent over. Mu Yaja's deep voice was filled with unquestionable determination. Yun Shishir pursed her lips, but there was nothing she could do about it. She did not resist and could only hug the qipao he sent over to her and enter the fitting room. About 10 minutes later, Yun Shishir walked out of the fitting room. She walked in front of the mirror and compared herself. Mu Yaja turned sideways to look. However, his originally deep and bottomless eyes suddenly had a flash of amazement. For more than 10 seconds, he was deeply mesmerized by her and could not take his eyes off her. Qin Zhou was also stunned. Chapter 1482. The gown was designed in the style of a cheongsam. The style was pure, just like the style of the old Shanghai cabarets in the 1920s. However, this gown was not a traditional cheongsam. It was a fusion of Chinese and Western elements, a combination of Chinese and Western elements. Unexpectedly, Yun Shishir looked surprisingly beautiful in it. This gown retained the standing collar, slit, rolled edges, luxurious fabrics, and embroidery. It extended the skirt to the length of the floor, creating a precedent for the cheongsam evening gown. The design of the slit up to the knees weakened the sexy elements and added a bit of royal majesty. The position from the neck to the collarbone was designed with a hollowed-out design. The white skin and sexy collarbone could only be glimpsed, but to a great extent, it interpreted the beauty of the Chinese sex appeal, giving people a kind of looming feeling. The cheongsam was sleeveless, revealing Yun Shishir's fair shoulders and slender arms. Every stitch and line of the embroidery on the gown was handmade, showing the magnificence of aristocracy. The slit on both sides rose to the hips, but it was just enough to cover it. It was not considered revealing, only a pair of jade legs faintly showing. Such an absolute territory, but it had a slightly heart-throbbing feeling. The waist was tight, and the exquisite figure was perfectly revealed. Looking from afar, it was exquisite and beautiful. Not every woman could interpret the beauty of a cheongsam. When Yun Shishir put on this gown, people felt that she had lost some of her youthfulness and gained some elegance and magnificence. More importantly, there was a charm that had settled down over time. Women were like flowers, like winter plum blossoms in the snow. They were proud and self-admiring, but with the most arrogant attitude, they looked down on the passing of time elegantly. Yun Shishir's temperament was more pure, but this gown deepened and subverted her temperament. It became mature and beautiful. Between her eyebrows, there was a seductive look, as if there was an endless charm to it. Even Qin Zhou was secretly depressed that he had misjudged the situation. Yun Shishir's style was no less inferior to the ink-style gown that Mr. Gong had sent over. Beautiful. So beautiful. For a moment, it was hard to find words to describe this aesthetic beauty. Mu Yaja did not expect that Yun Shishir would be so suitable for this dress. When she wore it, she was so beautiful that he could not look straight at her. An enchanting beauty assaulted his face. For a moment, he actually felt his body heating up slightly. Because of her appearance, he couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. Deep down in his bones, a man deeply loved the beauty of a woman, which was a bit erotic and a bit ascetic. However, he wished that this beauty belonged to him alone. Yun Shishir saw his burning gaze on her body. She shyly tugged at her skirt and asked curiously, "How do I look in this?" Mu Yaja suddenly snapped out of his thoughts and slowly took a few steps towards her. "What do you think?" Mu Yaja leaned over, stretched out his arms, and trapped her in his arms. His thin lips were close to her ears, and his breath was like orchids. "My body is heating up just by looking at you. Don't you think it looks good?" Yun Shishir's face was burning hot. "Hey!" She couldn't help but push him. "Don't be indecent. Can you answer me seriously?" "I'm answering you very seriously."